Chapter 900. Tang Tian's reply did not have a trace of emotion, and was extremely indifferent. This move was in truth a variation of the awakened god armor, and his state of mind was unknowingly influenced by the awakened god armor. He raised his leg and walked towards the Qiu Offense Institute unhurriedly. Boom. Pa! The light regiment on Tang Tian's right fist suddenly stopped moving, causing everyone's heartstrings to tremble, as though they were being pulled by an invisible pair of hands. Qiu Tianqing's body trembled, his face changed, his eyes filled with shock. Tang Tian's eyes lit up with a strange light aura. Qiu Tianqing's heart, which had relaxed slightly because of the energy barrier, suddenly tensed up again. Threads of light of different colors, like colorful lightning, wrapped around his fist. Boom. His right palm gently slashed towards the Qiu Offense Institute. Stabilize the energy barrier. Qiu Tianqing could no longer stand it. He bellowed out loudly, his voice carrying a trace of trembling. The soldiers roared out in unison, the light auras around their bodies exploded out, and white energy dots flew into the sky like fireflies. They continued to melt and expand, transforming into pieces of light leaves. In the entire honorable martial banner of knights, the only person who could reach such a level of strength was only one person, Sophie. Countless thoughts flashed past his mind. He had never heard of such a powerful person before, as though he came out from a rock. Qiu Tianqing knew that it was impossible. Such a powerful expert could not be nurtured in a day. He had to go through countless of battles and tempering himself. Only then could he transform step by step, and there was no such thing as luck for a strong martial artist. Yeah, this day has finally come. Could he be Temple's secret weapon? Tang Tian lowered his head, his masked face was hidden in the shadows. Only his eyes exploded with light, as though the sun had pierced through the shadows. There was only shock left in his eyes. Without Qiu Tianqing's orders, the soldiers continued to increase the thickness of the energy barrier. It showed how well-trained and experienced the Qiu offense army was. Qiu Tianqing knew that it was not, although the other party was wearing a mask, but he could tell with one look that it was a man. There was no dazzling light aura, no soul-shaking shriek. Qiu Tianqing's heart jumped, his eyes widened. Be careful. Zzz. Xian's expression was the same. Tang Tian's footsteps did not stop. His right palm struck out again. A sound that was even more terrifying than the previous sound came out. A visible ripple in the air, mixed with the shattered auras that filled the sky. It was as though a tornado had engulfed the entire Qiu Offense Institute. The flat palm entered the path. Compared to the blazing sun just now, the light it emitted now could only be considered weak. This was a completely different feeling. Just now, the ball of light was blazing and overbearing, leaving no doubt about the power of its explosion. But now this glowing palm had an indescribable magical power. It involuntarily attracted everyone's attention, making them unable to shift their gazes away. Seeing the energy barrier solidifying, Qiu Tianqing heaved a sigh of relief, and the uneasiness in his heart lessened. The Qiu offense army's full-power energy barrier was able to withstand the attacks of warships. Although the opponent's attack looked a little strange, it had taken too long to prepare. In such a long period of time, it was enough for the Qiu offense army's energy barrier to be strengthened to its peak. The law was completely annihilated in the surging ocean of energy, and no one noticed its existence. The astonishing amount of energy was constantly being compressed, and its fluctuations were also constantly changing. The undulations became weaker and weaker, but the heart-palpitating feeling became more and more intense. Regardless of the opponent's attack, the powerful energy barrier would always be effective. This was Qiu Tianqing's experience from countless of battles. Qiu Tianqing knew that the Qiu Offense Institute's pitiful defense was definitely unable to withstand the opponent's earth-shattering attack. Boss is truly the boss. Zhizai's eyes lit up, he could not help but praise. When they were still adapting to the Sacred Saint Galaxy, Tang Tian was already seeking for a new breakthrough. The shattered auras that were struck flew out, the seemingly solid energy barrier trembled, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. It was as though a drum had been fiercely struck underground. The low and terrifying impact sound caused everyone's heart to tremble and their ears to buzz. How can there be such a powerful person in the world? Boom. On the trading ship, Chia's eyes were wide open, her hands covering her mouth, her face filled with shock. It was bewitching and enchanting. Who exactly are you? Qiu Tianqing bellowed, his eyes staring straight at the opponent. The initially dazzling light suddenly dimmed down. The energy that was compressed to the extreme was like a liquid, flowing along Tang Tian's palm and enveloping his palm. A few soldiers who were close to the wall could not react in time and were sliced in half. Tang Tian did not even look. The bewitching jade-like palm was raised up again and slashed down lightly. Sophie? Could it be Sophie? What was strange was that although the light leaves were formed from radiant energy, they did not have any life force, but instead released an indescribable withering aura. His heart jumped. He had been through hundreds of battles and had survived countless times and was extremely familiar with the aura of death. The black iron mask was cold and emotionless, while Tang Tian's gaze was indifferent. Qiu Tianqing roared. He had finally thrown the fear in his heart to the back of his mind and roared, "Autumn wind offense." The stifling sound caused everyone's heart to tremble. The sentry post beneath Qiu Tianqing's body crumbled like paper. His reaction was extremely fast. He flew out the moment the sentry post collapsed, and landed on the ground steadily, blood seeping out of the corner of his mouth. God Fist was the starting stance of the awakened God armor, and they were extremely familiar with it. But the God Fist in front of them was completely different from before. Dong 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 dong. How is that possible? Qiu Tianqing looked at Tang Tian's palm in a daze. He had never seen such a strange attack before. But the more it was like that, the more uneasy he felt. The dazzling light aura lit up half of Tang Tian's body, but the other half became even darker. But the one who was the most shocked was Qiu Tianqing. He did not know what the colorful lights were, but the intense and suffocating sense of danger enveloped his entire body. It was as though he was lying under a cold guillotine. The cold blade edge was stuck to his neck, causing all the hairs on his body to stand. The disdain on Xiaoman's face froze and she blurted out, "What is that? How can a single person's strength reach such a terrifying level?" The soldiers of the Qiu offense army seemed to have awoken from a dream. They frantically gathered. Regiment after regiment of light auras rose up, and a thin light screen appeared above their heads, like an inverted bowl of light that enveloped the Qiu Offense Institute. A cold light flashed past Tang Tian's eyes. He raised his palm and slashed in the air. Dozens of withered leaves suddenly lit up and disappeared at the same time. How is that possible? The entire process seemed to have lasted for countless years, but in truth, it was just a snap of a finger. Qiu Tianqing's hand that was holding onto the railing trembled slightly. Qiu Tianqing had fought with the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights before, and knew that the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights had astonishing fighting capabilities, but they were definitely unable to reach such a terrifying level. Not the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights. It was as though it was late autumn, standing in the forest with leaves swirling in the air. The autumn wind swept up the fallen leaves, revealing the bleak autumn atmosphere. His attention finally landed on Tang Tian's body, and he saw an astonishing scene. He clenched his fists tightly. Paw. A crisp sound came out, like glass shattering, a ferocious tiger coming out of its cage. An astonishing aura surged out from Tang Tian's body. Jizai could tell that it was a god fist. The aura of death always causes people's minds to tremble. The Qiu Offense Institute's big door transformed into wood shavings that filled the sky, and was blown away by the wind. He knew that fear would not help him in any way. He forced himself to calm down. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Energy barrier." The Qiu Offense Institute's energy barrier actually showed signs of collapsing under the attack. To a military general, to be facing an attack that he had never seen before, it was not exaggerated at all. The only thing that made Qiu Tianqing feel a sense of security was the thick energy barrier. Qiu Tianqing knew that in the mysterious Heavens Road, they revered individual strength, but the strong martial artists there were definitely unable to contend against an army. To rely on his own strength to destroy the Qiu Offense Army's energy barrier, that also meant that the attack just now had a power that exceeded that of an ordinary warship. The light ball that was flickering and releasing an astonishing light aura caused his heart to jump. Why do I have the feeling that I'm facing a gold-grade warship? Just when everyone thought that Tang Tian was about to unleash his fist, an undetectable smile flashed past Tang Tian's mouth. No one could see it, but the fist inside the light ball had already extended out. The hair-like law threads were dyed dark gold and appeared on Tang Tian's palm. Tang Tian looked as though he was wearing a dark gold glove woven with gold threads. "Chia, I have always wanted to show you my strength." The heavy drums were so dense that it caused people to be unable to stand steadily. The shattered light auras flew out like wood shavings, causing everyone to feel a chill in their hearts. The thick energy barrier trembled intensely, like an air bubble that could burst at any moment. You don't need to know. Suddenly, in front of Tang Tian, a blade aura appeared in the air. The blade's body was covered with light leaves. The blade's body suddenly released a light aura, but in the blink of the eye, it dimmed down and the spirit energy disappeared. It was like a rusty blade covered with withered leaves, corroding and dissipating in the air. Looking at the Chiao Offense Institute's big door, Tang Tian calmed his excited heart. Without needing any encouragement, the fighting spirit in his body was surging to the point that it was about to burst out. Just as everyone was attracted to it, the glowing white jade-like palm gently slashed down in the air, without any trace of fire or qi. The desolate killing intent of the wind suddenly blew, causing the light leaves in the sky to flutter along with the wind. The Chiao Offense Institute's walls that were as sturdy as steel and black rocks seemed to have been slashed horizontally by a blade. Half of the mountain had disappeared. It was collapsing. How can a person's strength be so strong? Who would have thought that the gentle slash would actually produce such a violent effect? Chia, I have become very powerful. Tang Tian's fist was already completely devoid of the rainbow-colored light threads. His fist was currently a blazing sun. Streams of energy that wanted to slash apart the rain of arrows in the sky caused friction in the air, producing streaks of light. They converged from all directions as though they had smelled prey, and frantically surged towards Tang Tian's fist. Chapter 901. When the autumn offense intent permeated into his body, Tang Tian immediately felt that his state of mind had become sluggish and his heart trembled. His glass mental state blossomed with light aura, and at the same time, the undying sword in his body suddenly buzzed like a tiger or lion, causing the autumn offense intent that had permeated into Tang Tian's body to immediately dissipate. Sensing the undying sword in his body becoming restless, Tang Tian summoned the undying sword without hesitation. It was the first time Tang Tian had seen an army-killing technique that contained laws. In the sacred saint galaxy that was filled with energy, laws were buried under the energy, and the difficulty of gaining enlightenment on laws was much higher than in Sin Domain and Heaven's Road. That was why Tang Tian had never seen anyone gain enlightenment on laws in the sacred saint galaxy. Xiaoman immediately asked, "What's wrong?" With Tang Tian's perverse body, the raindrops that hit his body caused him to feel a stinging pain. Every raindrop contained the autumn offense intent that quietly permeated into Tang Tian's body. The waves of ocean of peace that soared into the sky smashed into the sky, smashing into the figures that were smashed into pieces. Shock, disbelief, with a trace of fascination. Many of them felt pity, but most of them were fear, the fear of death. His figure rushed into the light, and the sky full of sword hums accompanied Tang Tian's roars. The opponent was extremely powerful, and was the strongest martial artist that Qiu Tianqing had ever seen. But the opponent was too careless and actually wanted to challenge the entire Qiu offense army by himself. The withered leaves dancing in the sky did not have any signs of decreasing. Whenever the palm auras neared the Qiu Offense Institute, they would be entangled by the withered leaves and disappear. When the opponent slowly raised the bronze sword in his hand, all of the hairs on Qiu Tianqing's body stood, as though he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. He knew that feeling. It meant that he was about to be in danger, extremely dangerous. The bronze sword that was raised up high was like the flag of the Southern Cross Army flying high. The soldiers beside him were equally crazy and roared in unison, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" Light sword whale song indicated that it looked like it was surging, but it was only on the surface. "What is that?" Exen was startled. He subconsciously raised his head. It was a gold rank army killing technique, and it was a very unique gold rank army killing technique. Compared to the light sword whale song that Tang Tian had experienced before, autumn wind kill was much stronger. That's right, this was the smell of law. The other party's individual strength had far exceeded his knowledge. All the powerful martial artists that were famous for their individual strength, even the legendary Southern Alliance's big boss, was definitely not as powerful as the person in front of him. He leisurely walked towards the Qiu Offense Institute. His jade-like right palm continued to slash out, the speed of his slashes becoming faster and faster. Tang Tian was slightly moved. This change was unexpected. Most people would detonate the energy within the raindrops and use it to attack directly. But Qiu Tianqing did not do that. Instead, he hid the autumn offense intent within the energy, and when the raindrops were attacking the enemy's defense, it would quietly seep into the enemy's body. Because they needed people to fight. I'll go fight. You want someone to die? I'll die. Why did he disturb them? Why didn't they let the dead go? The life and death of our army is unknown. How can we rest in peace? The low hum of the sword was like the angry roar of millions of people. They were so angry, so unwilling, so stirring. Truly an unexpected joy. The resonance of the autumn wind offense did not seem to be as powerful as the light sword whale song, but it transmitted the undulation to the bottom of the sea, causing the law threads that resembled water plants to sway. The stirring and stirring aura soared into the sky, causing the surrounding air to form layers of ripples. Suddenly his pupils constricted. Laws. The autumn wind and autumn rain are so worrying. Qiu Tianqing's shout resonated throughout the Qiu Offense Institute. Bottom. Why are you so unwilling? Bean-sized raindrops poured down, but Tang Tian's footsteps did not stop. Every raindrop contained compressed energy, and although it did not look fast, it was extremely powerful. Tang Tian then realized, no wonder I have a vague sense of familiarity. Laws. Under the awakened god armor, Tang Tian was extremely sensitive to laws. Although it was not the complete state of the awakened god armor, but he was still able to sense the aura of laws. The light shone into the cabin through the window, causing Xin to feel as though he was struck by lightning. The buzzing of the sword blade was low like a rising tide. The sound became louder and louder. Tang Tian's eyes lit up again. If not for Tang Tian's fighting style being completely different from Sacred Saint Galaxy martial artists, and his intuition being extremely sharp, the autumn wind and autumn rain might have unknowingly landed on him. The bronze light aura that suddenly lit up shone through the window and onto Xian's sinister face. The pain was extremely clear, so clear that it caused Xiaoman's heart to ache. The bleak and desolate aura that was like a thin mist seemed to be able to seep into people's hearts, causing Tang Tian to feel as though he was standing in the autumn wind. The tens of thousands of trees had withered and withered. The faint cold intent seeped into his bones, causing him to tremble. Tang Tian's eyes lit up with a faint light aura. The reason why no one in the Sacred Saint Galaxy had gained enlightenment on laws, other than the difficulty, the other reason was that the Sacred Saint Galaxy's fighting style was dominated by armies. Their method of gaining enlightenment on laws was different from his own understanding. Although the military generals of the Sacred Saint Galaxy were unable to gain enlightenment on laws by themselves, but they were able to use their own unique methods to do so. Qiu Tianqing's eyes were wide open, staring straight at the bronze sword in Tang Tian's hand. Just like how when Tang Tian saw Qiu Tianqing's autumn wind defense, he could not help but be excited. Qiu Tianqing was the same. An unprecedented opponent had ignited an unprecedented fighting intent in his heart. What an autumn wind offense. The aura of his comrades, the aura of death, the aura of the ocean of peace. He could roughly guess the origin of the sword, but a weapon with the imprint of an army appearing in the hands of a single martial artist, it is truly a waste. Army. This is a weapon with the imprint of an army. How can there be such a weapon in the world? What kind of army would be willing to use their deaths to forge such a terrifying weapon? Xian's face was pale white, his body trembling even more. His legs were trembling, his fingers were trembling, his lips were trembling, only his eyes were staring straight at the bronze sword, as though he did not hear Xiaoman's words. To be able to encounter such a powerful army-killing technique, Tang Tian's originally high fighting intent became even more intense. He placed his attention on himself. What a strange feeling. It is completely different from the complete state of the awakened god armor. Tang Tian felt as though his body was on fire, but his mind was like a block of ice. Why do I want to cry? Tang Tian looked as though he was possessed. The low humming of the sword caused his entire body to tremble uncontrollably. The unforgettable scene that he had seen in the ocean of peace surfaced in his mind. That was the strongest martial artist he had ever met. Qiu Tianqing's veins were popping out. He roared out with all his might. On the trading ship, Xin stared blankly at the cracked bronze sword in Tang Tian's hand, his body trembling slightly. What made his heart palpitate even more was the solemn and stirring aura. It was as though he had seen countless figures pouncing towards the enemy, not seeking to kill the enemy but to perish together. So it was like that. What happened in the ocean of peace? Seniors, brothers, why don't you rest in peace? Why? The raindrops fell on Tang Tian's body, but he did not feel anything. The autumn wind and rain became the best background for him, adding to the solemn and stirring feeling. Why am I so angry? Resonance. The middle-aged man watching from afar had a change in expression. He knew that Qiu Tianqing was going to risk his life. His body was covered in cracks as though he was a porcelain man that had been smashed and then pieced back together. A cracked bronze sword appeared in Tang Tian's hands. His eyes suddenly turned bronze and a faint cross imprint could be seen. This sound, the resonance of the light sword whale song, was the resonance of energy, while the autumn wind offense was a step further. Through the resonance of energy, it would cause the undulations of law threads to join the resonance. The energy was like the seawater, while the law threads were like the seaweeds at the bottom of the sea. Generally speaking, the surface of the sea would be turbulent, while the bottom of the sea would be peaceful. He laughed at himself. Seems like I was truly intimidated by the enemy, and actually subconsciously thought that the autumn wind offense is unable to pose a threat to the enemy. The autumn offense intent can actually be used like that. Xian's fists were clenched so tightly that they turned white. He unknowingly lowered his head, his expression becoming sinister, and his entire body trembling even more violently. The raindrops that enveloped Tang Tian suddenly disappeared, as though there was an invisible hand that had gathered the raindrops. The raindrops converged into a torrent that surged into the Qiu Offense Institute. The dancing leaves did not move quickly, like a school of fish swimming leisurely in the flood, but they were quietly withering away. How can the autumn wind not have the autumn rain? Countless of thoughts flashed past in his mind, but Tang Tian's hands did not stop moving. Tang Tian's eyes lit up. This technique, autumn wind offense, was able to transform the qi in a single inch. It was extremely exquisite and could be said to be breathtaking. In his eyes, the energy in the Qiu Offense Institute was one, and was filled with a withering and desolate qi. The battle that he had exchanged for 100 years of slumber had been repeating itself for the past 10,000 years. And at the same time, the phrase, after 100 years, we will fight side by side again. Qiu Tianqing's eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness. He who had entered his battle state threw all the distracting thoughts to the back of his mind, and his eyes became cold. The bewitching jade hand, the simple and broken bronze sword, created a huge contrast. It was the first time Tang Tian had encountered such an attack, and it was even an army-killing technique. But for some reason he felt a sense of familiarity, as though he had seen it somewhere before. He knew that he had never seen such a breathtaking army-killing technique before. If he had seen it before, he would definitely not forget it. Tang Tian's body trembled, the roars from the ocean of peace resonated in his ears. The despair and unwillingness on the porcelain man's face flashed past his eyes. The rumbling fighting intent was like boiling lava, surging through every part of his body. Why did I disturb them? Why? Qiu Tianqing's heart finally calmed down. The autumn wind offense was as reassuring as ever. Why did I disturb them? That was the ocean of peace, the place where all of their comrades could rest in peace. Regardless of how intense the battle was, it was the last piece of paradise in their hearts, and when their souls returned to the ocean of peace, they would be able to rest in peace forever. It was the last place in their hearts that they cared about, the last place they fought for. They could die, but their comrades could rest in peace forever. Qiu Tianqing threw away all of his thoughts, threw away all of his schemes. His focus was unprecedentedly focused. He was currently a pure military general, and in his eyes, there was only the battle in front of him. She had long sensed that something was amiss. Xian seemed to be immobilized the moment Tang Tian summoned the sword. She knew that although Xian was usually nonsensical and was a bit flowery, but his heart was extremely calm, confident and calm, and his mental state was much better than hers. Why? Xian's body was trembling. That's right, he had never trembled like this before. Even in the last battle when he jumped out of the trenches and charged towards the enemy, he had never trembled like this, never trembled like this. Chapter 902. The sky seemed to have darkened. Loneliness pervaded the air. Beneath Tang Tian's feet, lights sparkled. The black ocean stretched endlessly. It was the ocean of peace. When Tang Tian raised his sword and shouted, "Without knowing if our army is alive or dead, how can we rest in peace?" The undying sword's buzzing resonated through the sky. The clouds in the sky were all shattered, the energy in the world was stirred, surging towards Tang Tian. How can we rest in peace? How can we rest in peace? Without knowing if our army is alive or dead, how can we rest in peace? That's right, I am truly too stupid. Even if they are in the ocean of peace, they will not be honest people, and they have so many people. Bang bang bang. His Qiu offense army had already completed their preparations. Qiu Tianqing's eyes were blazing with fighting intent, his mouth revealing a cold smile. The calm ocean of peace beneath his feet suddenly became restless. The waves became stronger and stronger. Qiu Tianqing did not expect the sword light to explode and was shocked. A large hole was formed in the autumn mist where the sword light exploded, but a few strands of mist floated over, causing the hole to disappear. But he did not plan to give up. No matter how powerful a sword is, it is still a sword. No matter how powerful a person is, he is still a person. He muttered. He gently pressed down on the sword body and waved it. Tang Tian stood on the ocean of peace. His body seemed to be burning, but his eyes had a complicated look in them. Can't let it go? What else can't you let go of? Qiu Tianqing was already prepared. He knew of the opponent's strength, but he did not think that he had no chance. He sighed in admiration at the sword's stubbornness. It was a true godly weapon. Its might and unimaginable sword technique caused Qiu Tianqing to be shocked. But, in any case, you guys can never win against me in cards. You guys know how good my memory is. Ever since he gained enlightenment on the awakened god armor, he was used to being calm during battles. But the moment the sword cry came out, all of his calmness was thrown to the back of his mind, and an indescribable excitement surged through his entire body. The Qiu offense army's ultimate killing technique. The sword lights that soared from the ocean of peace also seemed to be endless. Tang Tian had never seen such an army, he had never seen such a soul, he had never seen such conviction. You guys still the same as before. Are you guys so diligent in ruining the ocean of peace? He's been dead for so long, yet he's still so carefree? How can we rest in peace? How can we rest in peace? Alright, they were just that stupid and he was worried about them. It seemed like he was even more stupid, haha. Woo 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 woo. Don't let me run into you guys or else I'll help you guys recall the past, ha. Sob sob sob. The loneliness and sorrow that was as vast as the ocean of peace filled Tang Tian's heart and soul, but at the same time, there was a determination that was even vaster than the ocean of peace, burning Tang Tian's heart and soul. A bitter smile spread across his face. He couldn't help but laugh. He laughed so hard that he bent over and squatted on the ground. What an honor it was to be able to fight side by side with such conviction. The fragments of the sword gleam's explosion were not affected by the airflow at all. They scattered like colorful snowflakes. I'm just as stupid. I've also been dead for a long time. Do you guys know how afraid I've been for the past 10,000 years? How afraid I was of forgetting who I am, of forgetting the army, of forgetting all of you, how afraid I would not remember you if I met you. Do you guys know how hard it is for a lone ghost to live alone for 10,000 years? Do you guys know how boring it is to bring a bunch of skeletons to kill for 10,000 years? To the point of talking to myself, to the point of memorizing all the old and useless things. Do you guys know that I even remember how many toilet papers you guys used and how many left and right hands? As he laughed, he started to cry. His cries became louder and louder. He squatted on the ground and bawled, letting his mucus and snot flow freely. The Qiu Offense Institute beneath his feet was dyed with autumn frost, as though it was covered with a thin layer of snow. A faint mist rose from the ground. The Qiu Offense Institute was filled with mist, as though it was another world. The energy barrier was removed, and the mist climbed up the walls of the Qiu Offense Institute, and slowly spread out like a climbing gray rose or a white mist wall. In a moment, the walls of the Qiu Offense Institute were completely enveloped by the mist. He laughed as he punched the ground, and as he laughed, tears flowed down his cheeks. Xian felt that he was truly stupid. The ones who are going to cry should be the bunch of fools. To give up such a good life, the ocean of peace is such a good place. How much effort did we put in to succeed, but these fools do not know how to cherish it. The sword light that tore through the horizon shone on Xian's youthful face, shining on his aged pupils, causing him to laugh bitterly with self-ridicule. Why are you guys doing this? Why are you guys giving up? Giving up the peace that we worked so hard to obtain? Have you guys forgotten? For the sake of the ocean of peace, how much have we paid, how difficult it was? Have you guys forgotten fighting is the mission of the living and all of you just need to rest in peace? The sword light suddenly exploded, and the scattered light auras scattered all over the ocean of peace like fireworks. Time is like a river and will always slowly wash away the heat of blood. No need for protection, eternal peace. Tang Tian was like a gigantic whirlpool. One after another, light rays shot out from all directions, bringing with them soul-stirring screeches. It truly suits the personalities of you fools. He heard the millions of generals roaring out in unwillingness, he heard the heroics of moths flying into flames, he heard a general with a face full of cracks, facing the disappointment and defeat in his heart, towards the endless silent soldiers, towards the lonely and dark ocean of peace, towards the 100 years of slumber and the countless years of failure, towards the army that he deeply loved but did not know if it still existed. He shouted out loudly, rousing the morale, saying that we will meet again in 100 years, saying that we will fight side by side in 100 years. In the restless ocean of peace, one after another, illusory figures slowly floated out from the surface of the ocean. The illusory figures were extremely blurry, like mist and shadows, but one could faintly see that they were human figures. He raised his head as though he was looking at the sky. He leapt into the air, transforming into a sword light that soared into the sky. The sword hiss was low and powerful. It was fervent and tragic, shooting towards the Qiu Offense Institute. Sword auras fell like rain. They continued to strike the mist around the Qiu Offense Institute. When Tang Tian raised the undying sword up high, the low sword hiss was like a whirlwind that revolved around him, replying to him. The explosion seemed to be the prelude to a banquet. The mist around the Qiu Offense Institute seemed to be endless. The sword lights outside the window were like rain, like the light in the past, illuminating Xin 10,000 years later. The sound of the energy beams tearing through the air became even more ear-piercing, while the undying sword's hiss became even more solemn and tragic. They mixed together, causing Tang Tian's body to tremble uncontrollably. Woo woo woo, I miss all of you. One of the shattered auras did not fall into the ocean, but landed on the ground, and he personally witnessed how it silently created a 200 wide crater that was so deep that he could not see the bottom. The Sacred Saint Galaxy had long proven that an army was the strongest. Haha, I still remember all of you, I still remember all of you. It's not that I miss all of you, it's not that I can't bear to part with all of you. I'm just afraid of being embarrassed, I'm just afraid of being embarrassed. It's true. They were souls that had been shattered over 100 times in the past 10,000 years, all because of a strand of hope that was so dim that it was about to melt into the darkness. They had given up on peace. They had endured 100 years of loneliness, in exchange for a chance that had almost no hope of victory. They had ignited all of their light and heat and then were shattered. They silently licked the wounds that covered their entire bodies, and slept in the darkness, waiting for the awakening after 100 years. He held the undying sword vertically in front of his chest. The words engraved on the sword body were reflected in his eyes. The mist around the Qiu Offense Institute surged endlessly, as though there was a terrifying monster inside. Every time a sword aura exploded, a large hole would be blasted open in the mist. But in the blink of an eye, the hole that was blasted open would once again be occupied by the mist. There is no need for protection, eternal peace. The 10,000 years of darkness, despair and bitter struggle were the smoke that they could not penetrate. This tragic scene that was repeated time and time again had nothing to do with victory, but the Southern Cross Army's war flag that had always fluttered in their hearts. He calmed down. The sword auras looked terrifying, but their might was only slightly stronger than ordinary worship weapons. If it was the energy barrier from before, they would not be able to hold on for long, but to shake the autumn frost-cold ground, the intensity of the attack was not enough. The old general was no longer brave. He did not speak of victory, he did not speak of success, he only spoke of fighting side by side in 100 years. The old general was no longer brave. They were silent, they were disappointed, and only woke up after 100 years, leaping out from the ocean of peace, striking into the sky, shouting that the life and death of the army was unknown. How can we rest in peace and only shatter? Xiao Man wanted to step forward, but Chia pulled her back and shook his head slightly. Xiao Man bit her lips tightly. The ferocious look in her eyes had disappeared. Bang bang bang. When the tragic sword auras brought forth sharp whistles and dazzling splendor, they struck onto the mist outside the walls of the Qiu Offense Institute. Do you guys know how to waste the quota? Do you guys know how to waste the blood and sweat of the past? One after another, images transformed into sword auras that soared into the sky. Autumn frost cold ground. Bang. Tang Tian's roar reverberated in the air. The gloomy sword hums responded to him, following his roar, following his agitation, following his roar, following his roar, following his roar, following his roar. It was as though they were spitting out all the unwillingness and anger that had accumulated for 10,000 years, as though they were trying to smooth out their broken faces, as though they were trying to shatter their own resting place. How can I rest in peace? How can I rest in peace? All of you idiots are not resting in peace. In truth, you just want to play cards every day, right? All of you that were abused by me in the past, hurry up and come out. Don't think that I do not remember all of you. Even without me, an expert that can kill everyone on the table, all of you were able to maintain your dignity on the table, but in the end, all of you were unable to rest in peace, right? If it was said that he could understand the attacks of the Qiu offense army, but he could not understand the attacks of the masked man at all. That's right, he could not understand them at all. The bewitching and chilling hand, in the end, even the autumn wind offense, was unable to contend against it. That was something he had never heard of before. Where did this strange black sea come from? Is it an illusion? And the sword light that flew out from the sea caused him to be even more dumbstruck. The middle-aged man was shocked. It was just a shattered aura. Looking at the snowflake-like shattered aura, his heart could not help but jump. It could completely erase the entire city. Seeing the whistling sword light, the sorrowful and tragic sword light caused him to be moved. But so what? As though their hearts were linked, Tang Tian suddenly took a step forward, his clothes fluttering without any wind. The waves beneath his feet exploded, but he did not feel anything. His gaze was extremely focused. He flipped his wrist and thrusted out the undying sword. Who exactly is he? He squatted on the ground, slapping the floor like a lunatic. He would cry bitterly and laugh foolishly. Tang Tian was extremely excited. The middle-aged man who was spectating from afar had a pale face. The battle in front of him had completely toppled everything he knew. Autumn wind offense was the killing technique of the Qiu offense army. He naturally recognized it, but what was the strange mist in front of him? Could this be the true killing technique of the Qiu offense army? Chapter 903. The middle-aged man put away his petty thoughts, and a fierce look flashed in his eyes as he ordered the guards beside him in a low voice. Even in the Sacred Saint region, a pseudo-law domain was something that only the strongest powerhouses could possess, but he actually saw it in the sacred region. Suddenly, there was a commotion among the elders. News came from inside that Sophie had left the Twilight Palace and was heading towards the Radiant Palace. The clan elders tensed up. Once the great clan elder spoke, Temple's attitude and stance would be set in stone. Sophie's emotions gradually calmed down. Her eyes were red and she apologized to the great clan elder. This subordinate did not receive any orders, and ordered an attack on the Qiu family, causing a bad influence. Please punish me, clan elder. So, from the bottom of his heart, he disapproved of the Sacred Saint Galaxy's military army. When Sophie stepped into the sacred hall, she was greeted by the complicated gazes of the elders. She knew what these people were thinking, but she didn't care at all. What did their lives have to do with her? Just like how Jizai saw that there was an army in the Sacred Saint Galaxy that had gained enlightenment on a quasi-law domain, Qiu Tianqing had the same feeling. In the Sacred Saint Galaxy where armies ruled, seeing a person with a fighting strength comparable to a warship was no different from seeing a ghost. Sophie walked to the door of the Light Palace and knelt down with a plop. Her shoulders twitched and her tears flowed uncontrollably. She lay on the ground and her tears fell to the ground. Her sorrow did not diminish in the slightest. Sophie nodded and changed direction, heading towards the Twilight Palace. That's right, the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights is back. I can sleep more peacefully now. What move was this? After a full 5 minutes, the opponent's sword light still showed no signs of weakening. In truth, ever since he entered the Sacred Saint Galaxy, he looked down on the armies and military generals of the Sacred Saint Galaxy. None of the people here had comprehended laws. Laws and energy were two completely different levels of power. Tang Tian quickly realized that he had made a mistake in his judgment. Previously, Qiu Tianqing suspected that they were disguised as the Banner of Knights, but now he felt that even if they were not from the Banner of Knights, they were definitely from Temple. Qiu Tianqing firmly believed that if there was a place that could nurture monsters that could rival warships, it would definitely be Temple. Even in Sin Domain there was only one person with a domain law domain, and Dooku relied on that to ascend to the throne, becoming the publicly acknowledged #1 in Sin Domain. Looking at her disappearing figure, the elders started to discuss amongst themselves. Jizai could hardly believe his eyes. What kind of joke was this? Quasi-law domain. What are you afraid of? The Honorable Martial Knight Regiment has returned. If they dare to act recklessly, they will be courting death. The holy temple buzzed and trembled. Laws. She stood there staring at the gate like a statue and said nothing. This was the reason why it was different from other army killing techniques. Autumn frost cold ground contained the laws of autumn. In a certain sense, autumn frost cold ground had already surpassed the limits of an army killing technique. Why is he being punished? A low and powerful voice rang out from within the blazing holy flames. The great clan elder was filled with indescribable rage. Those fellows thought I would compromise? They were wrong. I would rather the sanctum collapse than compromise with them. How could a single person maintain such a high attack intensity? Quasi-law domain. But the army that he looked down on was actually able to gain enlightenment on laws, and was even able to form a space similar to a law domain. How could he not feel as though he had seen a ghost? This thought went on for 10 years. When Sophie massacred the Chiu family's encampment, the great clan elder did not express any opinion, and even when sacred son Charles was assassinated, the great clan elder did not say a word. Is she still at the entrance of the Twilight Palace? It's already been 2 hours. She acted as though she did not see the clan elders. Holding onto the saber by her waist without saying a word, she slowly walked deeper into temple. Halfway there she suddenly spoke. Which palace was His Highness assassinated at? That was a worship-grade attack, regardless of whether it was the power of the sword light or the frequency of the attack. They were all worship-grade. And it was a gold-grade worship-grade. When Qiu Tianqing created the Autumn Wind Defense, he had always been thinking about how to create an army-killing technique that was stronger than the Autumn Wind Offense. Warships were powerful and had sturdy defenses, but there were many limitations to their usage, for example the size of the estuary, or the lack of flexibility in small battlefields. Warships were usually used in the vast sea of energy. But just like how Tang Tian underestimated the autumn frost cold ground, Qiu Tianqing similarly underestimated the undying sword. The torrential sword light seemed to be endless, and Qiu Tianqing's initially calm expression gradually became serious. They knew that the great clan elder was waiting for Sophie's return. What the hell? That is the ultimate weapon. A quick-witted clan elder immediately replied, It's the Twilight Palace. A sudden inspiration gave him an epiphany. But that was just the beginning. An army-killing technique was never something that a military general could create alone. After spending 5 years, he and his subordinates continued to perfect it, and finally created the strongest killing technique. Autumn frost cold ground. Come on, do you really think that the Qiu family is a pushover? Inside temple, the clan elders were in groups of 3 to 5, discussing softly. Their gazes would occasionally look into the depths of temple. She had been here countless of times. It was her home, the place she was most familiar with the people she was most familiar with. The door was still majestic, the white light was still dense, but the people she was most familiar with could no longer be seen. An intense fear filled his heart. They were like arrows that had been shot and could no longer turn back. They were too familiar with Temple's style. Even if they were to appease them now, once the situation stabilized, it would be the time to settle the scores, and none of them would be able to escape. Upon activating the autumn frost cold ground, the place where the army was would activate the laws of autumn, and form a unique autumn territory. The autumn territory was independent and was able to continuously absorb energy. The autumn frost would turn into mist, and it could be said to be endless and endless. Sigh, you can't blame her, she had such a deep relationship with sacred son Charles. Upon hearing the news of sacred son Charles being assassinated, how could she not lose control? It is because the prestigious families are too arrogant, too daring. We should have taken care of them earlier. We are raising a tiger that will invite calamity. Be sad, since the one who died was sacred son Charles. Temple wants to destroy the Qiu family. Similar discussions sounded out from time to time, but none of the clan elders left. They stayed in Temple's largest plaza, waiting for the final news. Not only did they recognize Tang Tian, there was another person, and that was Jizai. The God Armor Army's qualifications were all ordinary, including Fu Jingji. Although he was strong, he was older. Out of all of them, the only one who could be called a genius was Jizai. Shu, be careful of your words. Be careful of the walls. They are a bunch of lunatics. They even dare to assassinate sacred son Charles. Why would they place us in their eyes? Because the autumn frost cold ground was different from all the previous army killing techniques. The great clan elder's palm that was enveloped by the golden holy flames did not have any burning sensation, but only the power to calm his heart. Compared to individual martial techniques, army killing techniques were much more complicated. It was even more difficult for soldiers to gain enlightenment on laws, and the requirements for killing techniques were even harsher. But as long as they succeeded, the might would be unimaginable. If he said to fight, the entire temple would disregard everything and fight. No matter how much money they spent, no matter how many people died, temple would continue to fight. If the great clan elder said to make peace, it meant that no matter how intense the battle was, no matter how deep the hatred was, temple would still reconcile with the other party. Sophie's return had alarmed all the clan elders. Qiu Tianqing was extremely calm at the start, although the other party's attacks were ferocious, but their autumn frost cold ground was not made of paper. He was extremely confident in the autumn frost cold ground, even though it was the first time he was using it after it was created. If an army was able to unleash a warship-grade attack without a warship, they would be considered elites. As for the person, wouldn't that be a human-shaped warship? How can there be such a person in the world? The great clan elder sighed and caressed Sophie's head. Sophie stood outside the Twilight Palace. For such a serious matter to happen in the Twilight Palace, the inside and outside had long been searched countless of times, even the ground had been dug up. It was a complete mess. I want to let them know how much they overestimate themselves. 15 years of sharpening a sword. The laws contained in the autumn frost cold ground were not in the form of law threads, but law surfaces. It was not even an ordinary law surface. The autumn laws in the space already possessed the embryonic form of a law domain. For example, it could repair itself, which was the most common characteristic of a law domain. Before he had gotten used to using laws to control energy, he was extremely weak. However, once he broke through this barrier, his strength would skyrocket overnight. If we were to say that there was a layer of paper between laws and energy, then the paper from laws to energy would be extremely thin, while the paper from energy to laws would be extremely thick. But a human-shaped warship is too terrifying. It was not affected by the terrain and possessed unparalleled agility. It was able to attack stealthily, and the might of its attacks was comparable to a warship. She is too rash to actually massacre the Qiu family's encampment. Isn't that just making the conflict even more intense? If the Qiu family was truly destroyed by Temple, then with Temple's might, how many people would dare to face them head-on? At that time, the prestigious family's alliance would be destroyed. At the start, Jizai looked at the Qiu Offense Institute with disdain and contempt, but when the mist blocked the sword light, his face became serious. But very quickly, the shock on his face became more and more, until it became as though he had seen a ghost. It was not only the clan elders who were nervous. All the prestigious families who received the news were also nervous. The great clan elder was the highest existence in Temple. The guard's face became serious. He nodded his head continuously, then turned and left. It's been hard on you, child. If you want to cry, cry out loud, don't keep it in your heart. Chapter 904. Qiu Tianqing hesitated. He understood the meaning behind the other party's words. The other party's meaning was clear. At such a crucial time, they did not want to complicate matters, and even if there were any disputes, they had to be decisive. Xiaoman immediately felt uncomfortable and asked, "Miss, what's with your expression?" On the trading ship, Xiaoman was slightly annoyed. Isn't he usually very intelligent? Why did he expose himself? Chia, who had been standing there like a goddess of war, suddenly blushed. She glared at Xiaoman but did not say a word. Tang Tian did not have any distracting thoughts in his mind. He did not think much about it. It was just an instinctive action. The dazzling shattered light auras lit up the ocean of peace. The beauty of death was extremely tranquil. For some reason, everyone held their breaths as though they were afraid of breaking the tranquility. General Hua, who was in the air, did not believe them and sneered. As expected, you will not shed tears until you see the coffin. You are still not giving up and still want to act mysterious. You are seeking death. Although Ah Exen did not look any different from usual, but Chia could clearly feel his seriousness and desire. Ah Exen and Xiaoman were Chia's left and right arms, and she understood the two of them extremely well. Xiaoman loved to fight, but Axin did not have any interest or passion in fighting. If he could not fight, he would not. If he could spend 10 minutes to settle a battle, he would not spend 20. The torrential sword lights continued for 10 minutes, and when the last sword light shattered, the entire world seemed to have quietened down. Holy flames, he did not sense any holy flame aura. If the other party was the honorable martial banner of knights, it was impossible. The holy flame was the source of power for any honorable martial banner of knights, and in a high-intensity battle, it could not be faked. General Qiu. The leader of the group bowed to Qiu Tianqing. Qiu Tianqing bowed slightly. I never thought that such a small matter would actually alarm General Hua. But this battle concerns my Qiu family's personal grudge. I hope that General will not interfere. In the past he was defeated and captured by Jie Shangguan, which was why he chose to join her, but he was not willing to do so. Although he admired Jie Shangguan's standard of commanding, it was not enough for him to pledge his loyalty. He just did not want to disappear from the world. His mind was filled with nonsensical thoughts, but his heart was very calm. Axin felt a little sad when he thought about how the Bustu woman had seen him like this today. I'm finished. I'm going to be laughed at by this girl. I don't know when I'll be able to regain my impression. The obsession of his former comrade-in-arms was right in front of him. These fellows had wasted the precious ocean of peace, causing him to want to beat them up. Thank you, miss. Axin thanked Chia solemnly. Who's so free? He was too busy with the matters of this life, and even this battle had not ended yet. That was why it was very common for him to not put in any effort, and compared to Xiao Ran he was not qualified at all. However, to his surprise, Chia had never been dissatisfied with him because of this. The soldiers of this army were all wearing angry red capes and exquisite and gorgeous golden armors. All of them had cold and indifferent expressions, and with one look, one could tell that they were veterans of hundreds of battles. The general in the lead was tall and sturdy with a square face and thick eyebrows. His most eye-catching feature was his fiery red hair. He was not lonely at all, and he did not envy others at all. Furthermore, since when did a small family at the bottom of the hierarchy actually have such a powerful army? Who said we were impersonating the banner of knights? Axin bowed to Tang Tian seriously and spoke respectfully. I ask young master to hold the line for this subordinate. A look of joy flashed past Xiao Ran's eyes, but she snorted. We were just lucky. At the start he suspected that they were the banner of knights. The enmity between the two parties was clear, and Sophie's intention to use the Qiu family as an example was clear, which caused his thoughts to go into the wrong direction. The sword was filled with intense emotions. It did not belong to him but to Axin, so Tang Tian felt that it should be given to Axin, and that the undying sword would be happy. Axin leisurely strolled in the air with a look of indifference. We are the Iron Mask Army of the Macefield Tradings family. There is no need for me to say more about the enmity between the Qiu family and my Macefield Tradings family. Could it be that sire intends to intervene? Only Qiu Tianqing's pupils constricted. He sensed danger. Only Qiu Tianqing's eyes constricted. He sensed danger. His companions were Bing Crane, Ling Su, Big Brother Jing Hao, Sai Lei, Pai Pa, Ding Dang. Without saying a word, he tossed the undying sword to Axin. From now on, it is yours. Since when did a small prestigious family dare to challenge a first-rate prestigious family? Qiu Tianqing and General Hua were both startled. Chia glanced at Xiao Ran and giggled but did not say a word. Qiu Tianqing knew that they were plotting something big. Furthermore, Tang Tian thought about Xian and Bing's relationship, and thought about his identity as a member of the Southern Cross Army and was enlightened. That's right, the sword contains the aura of Xian's comrades-in-arms. But upon exchanging blows, he knew that the other party was not the banner of knights. It completely toppled their common sense. It was too absurd. Axin laughed out loud. Just as he was about to express his lofty aspirations, he was interrupted by Xiao Ran. If you want to go, hurry up and go. What are you dawdling for? Jie Shangguan did not say a word, but looked at Axin seriously. General Hua spoke out. The holy bell has sounded. It is time for us to achieve our goals. And the Qiu family is the pillar of our honorable martial continent. How can we be delayed by these thieves and thieves? The majority of Tang Tian's emotions towards the undying sword were because of the obsession. He was extremely excited, honored and respected the seniors, but he knew that the legends were theirs, the beliefs were theirs, The emotions also belonged to them, belonged to the Southern Cross Army. He glanced at Tang Tian, his mouth revealing a sneer. He nodded his head. General, be careful, they are not the banner of knights. Be it being moved, be it sadness, be it yearning, be it hope, they were all for themselves, not to move others, not to let others know. Everything was for themselves, for the true desire in their hearts. Xian's body trembled. He grabbed the undying sword in a flurry. Even though it was just a moment ago, everyone could tell that the sword was not ordinary. Tang Tian actually gave him the sword. They had thought of all sorts of possibilities, but they had never thought of the Macefield Trading's family. A low-ranking prestigious family ran to a high-ranking prestigious family and said that they had enmity. The unease in Qiu Tianqing's heart became even more intense. Thinking about that, he felt slightly embarrassed. Who knew that when he requested to fight, Xia would agree so straightforwardly? Xian knew that regardless of the reason, just the understanding was extremely hard to come by. Bang! Xia was decisive and independent. She had her own opinions and did not care about him at all. In the sky 300 m away from Tang Tian, there was a sudden explosion. The sky was filled with fiery snakes. When the fiery light dissipated, the army appeared out of thin air, revealing their true appearance. It was the first time they had requested to fight. Unknowingly, a spirit general had appeared not far from Tang Tian. His legend was Ursa Major Constellation, Three Spirit City, Southern Alliance and godlike young lad. Xian looked at Tang Tian deeply. Although Tang Tian's face was covered with a mask, his expression could not be seen, but his eyes were as clear as water. An old monster that had lived for over 10,000 years, with his endless sorrow. If Bing and Screw were to know about it, who knew how they would digest it? Xian's face was brimming with a bright smile, with a hint of cynicism and anticipation without a trace of sorrow. An army that was like a fiery cloud, blazing down from the horizon. His gratitude was sincere and sincere. We have already endured for 10,000 years, but we still haven't found the answer. Dying is a loss. General Hua's gaze turned cold. He said indifferently, impersonating the banner of knights, your crimes are even more serious. Today even Temple will not be able to save you. He bowed respectfully to Xia. This subordinate requests to fight. Just at that moment, a chuckle suddenly sounded out in the tense battlefield. The entire place could hear it. Other than Xia and Xiaoman, no one else knew that on the trading ship not far away, there was an old young lad who was sobbing. Even if they knew, they might not be able to understand. 10,000 years was too long, long enough for the world to change, long enough for the people to change, long enough for the oath to be destroyed. Inside the cabin, Xian wiped his tears and stood up as though nothing had happened. Suddenly, a roar thundered out from afar. In the Saint Continent, you actually dare to violate the Holy Bell's ban and attack the prestigious Qiu family. Why are you acting so sneakily? Why are you not surrendering? With that said, he stood up, wielding the undying sword. He stepped onto the ocean of peace. Xia blinked her eyes. Make a guess. Thinking about Xian's wailing appearance, Xia thought for a moment, then replied without hesitation, all right. How would the busty-chested girl understand such delicate emotions? He muttered in his heart. How am I going to raise my head in front of her in the future? This is a little troublesome. I want to create my own legend. I want to write down my own beliefs from the start. He has always been like that. Even though he had inherited many things from the Southern Cross Army, he had never felt that he was living for the sake of reviving the Southern Cross Army. Chia's beautiful eyes flickered with light. She chuckled. I feel that he has handled it well. Since we cannot pretend to be the banner of knights, then using the name of Macefield Tradings is the most suitable. Xian's mind truly works fast. Xiao Ran always finds trouble with me. That should be the reason. Unlike him, Xiao Ran was loyal and devoted to Xia. Xiao Ran's face turned cold. She snorted. If you throw our face in front of young master, you can just slit your own throat. The change in aura was extremely subtle. It was obviously a peaceful scene, but for some reason the sense of danger in Qiu Tianqing's heart did not decrease, but instead became more intense. Qiu Tianqing knew that something was amiss. His gaze was focused and vigilant, but he did not discover anything. The ocean of peace was calm and tranquil without any ripples. It was like a black mirror. Macefield Tradings? Xian was not afraid. He bowed to Tang Tian. Young master, I wonder if you can hand the sword and the battle to this subordinate? Tang Tian was startled. He never thought that Qiu Tianqing would actually be able to sense that they were not the Banner of Knights. That meant that their plan to disguise as the Banner of Knights and fish in troubled waters had been foiled. Xiao Ran's face was filled with black lines. Xian's laughter stopped abruptly. It was stuck in his throat. Chapter 905. Qiu Tianqing's eyes surged with killing intent. The 5 great generals were powerful, but he never felt that he was inferior to them. For the 5 great generals to have such a reputation, it was all because of Temple. No one knew that the 5 great generals were his imaginary enemies. But it was a pity that the 5 great generals were stationed outside and he did not have the chance to fight them. The figures seemed to have congealed slightly, and even the red cracks seemed to have become even more vibrant. The powerful voice resonated in the ocean of peace. This is your 10,000 years. His gaze swept across each of the phantoms. Their faces were like fog. He couldn't call out their names, but he knew it was them. The wounds that looked like burning red wires had covered every corner of their bodies, and not a single part of their bodies was intact. Although he did not know which army they came from, but any general was definitely not a small matter, and there was no luck involved. Their position did not represent their strength, but their military rank did. If they can't even handle a low-level prestigious family, how can they be considered as a top-notch prestigious family? What was worse was that it would cause others to think that the Qiu family was just an empty shell, and at such a crucial moment, if everyone lost confidence in the Qiu family, it would undoubtedly be a huge blow to the Qiu family. That familiar aura, that familiar feeling, that familiar shout, that familiar roar, that's right, even after 10,000 years, it is still so familiar. That's right, after 10,000 years we are still able to meet. Jia and Xiao Man, who were on the trading ship, were also stunned. General. Regardless of where or what army it is, they are existences that people look up to. But so what? He soared into the sky. Beside him 5,000 gray figures soared. The sound of chains being blown by the wind could be heard, but no one could see the chains. But today he had a general in front of him. After fighting with a nameless person for so long, he had not won, and most of the time he was suppressed, causing the prideful Qiu Tianqing to feel. But at that moment the Hua family suddenly came wanting to help. The soldiers of the Qiu offense army were covered in gray armors, with faint golden lines on them. Their faces were pale white, expressionless, with mist surging in their gray pupils. Each of them exuded a faint chill. Everything within 7 inches of their feet was covered in autumn frost, and their bodies were filled with killing intent. Following the rise of his sword, numerous illusory figures floated out from the ocean of peace. Qiu Tianqing did not speak any nonsense. He activated his qi, causing the Qiu Offense Institute's autumn laws to revolve. Like chains dragging on the ground, deep grooves suddenly appeared on the snow-like surface of the autumn frost, as if something had been dragged on it. Xian's hand that was holding the sword was trembling. Countless information flowed into his mind from the undying sword, and countless images flashed past. He finally knew what had happened. He finally knew what had happened in the ocean of peace in the past 10,000 years. He raised the undying sword and let out a long whistle. One careless move and the whole game would be lost. Jia and Xiao Ran were like sisters, and immediately noticed Xiao Ran's gloomy mood. She was extremely intelligent and immediately understood what was going on, and intentionally said, "I never thought that Xian would be so powerful in the past. I really couldn't tell. I asked him to be your assistant, yet he's still hiding his abilities. Use your Zamadeo to beat him up." Different from the shock of the others, Qiu Tianqing felt the danger even more directly. In the honorable martial continent, only the 5 great generals were generals. No one else had the qualifications. Xiao Ran looked at Xian in a daze. She was unable to connect the god of war in front of her with the usual sloppy and unscrupulous uncle that she would beat up. He raised his sword and bellowed, "The spirit of the soldier will not dissipate, the battlefield will last forever, the cross in my heart, the stars will not fall." The misty and illusory figures had dark red cracks all over their bodies. They looked like lines of blood that were extremely ghastly. They were like clay statues that were smashed and then pieced back together. They stood there stupefied and silent. Qiu Tianqing took a deep breath. The expression on his face became extremely sinister. "If I do not tear all of you to shreds today, I am not Qiu Tianqing." The Qiu Offense Institute's mist started to shrink, and the Qiu Offense Institute that was originally shrouded in mist once again revealed its true appearance. When everyone saw the Qiu Offense Institute clearly, they were all shocked. For some reason, Xiao Ran felt a sense of loss. For some reason, the previous Exen made her feel more relaxed and at ease. General rank, Xiao Ran had a deeper understanding of it. The Ophiuchus army in the past was the Southern Cross Army's mortal enemy. Xiao Ran's talent was not bad, but in the Ophiuchus army she was only a captain that could lead 1,000 men. What was the concept of a general? Come, let us fight. They were like gray clouds that floated towards Exen. All along he had been living in the shadow of the 5 great generals Qiu Su Hua. But he had never given up. From autumn wind offense to autumn frost cold ground, he had walked step by step to where he was today. Xiao Ran was roused. That's right, no matter how powerful he is, so what if he's a general? If you don't listen to me, I'll still whip you. No matter how big the world is, young miss and young master are the biggest. Speaking of which, no wonder I feel that he is so easy to whip. A general is truly not ordinary, even the feeling is different. So he is a big figure. The Qiu family has a general, the talented Qiu Su Hua. General Hua, who was watching from afar, revealed a look of shock. What army is that to actually have such terrifying might? He, Qiu Tianqing, had been through hundreds of battles and was famous. Who did not know of him? Which one of them did not tremble with fear when facing a formidable enemy? Exen acted as though he did not see the changes in the Qiu Offense Institute. He gently caressed the sword blade, which was covered with terrifying cracks. The ocean of peace beneath his feet was extremely calm, and the stifling silence was extremely stifling. Since when can a random person look down on me? Although he had agreed to the Hua family's suggestion, Qiu Tianqing was still stifled with anger. When he saw that the enemy's general had left and sent a spirit general to fight him, he could not control his anger. Stepping into the air, everyone's eyes blurred, and Exen stepped into the ocean of peace. Exion's military rank is actually higher than Uncle Bing. It is too terrifying. He bit his lips tightly and opened his eyes wide, doing his best to prevent his tears from flowing. Millions of voices converged into one. Like thunder exploding out, the sky changed color. He thought about the sound of the chains dragging across the ground. In Sin domain, law armors were not rare. On the contrary, it was the most common method to transform laws into armors. But no matter how common a method was, once one reached the quasi-law domain, it would become extremely rare. The golden patterns on their armors were forged from laws. Jizai's eyes constricted. Law armors. A smile surfaced on his face, and the air around him started to move without any wind. His eyes lit up with a light aura that resembled the radiance of the full moon. The millions of spirits that had been silent the entire time suddenly made the same move. They all stepped on the surface of the sea at the same time. Bang! A loud sound came out and the surface of the sea caved in by 10 m. The true test is here. All of the subordinates behind him felt their hearts tremble. They knew that their master was truly enraged. Exen felt as though a knife was slicing through him, but he revealed a smile. His entire body emitted an intense cold intent. He looked like a demon that had walked out from hell, but he was smiling. Jizai had never seen so many soldiers in armor at the same time. But his eyes were much sharper than the rest. He could tell that the gray armors were not ordinary, and that there seemed to be a formless connection between them. All of the illusory figures trembled. They all raised their heads and looked at the undying sword. Previously they were lifeless, but upon hearing those words, it was as though they had regained consciousness. Exion's entire body was covered in energy. His ordinary-looking face emitted a sharp aura that no one could look straight at. His expression was complicated, solemn, excited, emotional, reminiscing. His heart was filled with a myriad of emotions, but all of these emotions flashed past his eyes, and he regained his composure, becoming as calm as water. Tang Tian was dumbstruck. General. Since young, Qiu Su Hua had always been his most direct competitor. And because Qiu Su Hua had defeated him, he obtained the opportunity to go to temple, and thus became one of the 5 great generals. Come out, everyone. His eyes were red, his expression solemn, his sword pointed to the sky. His expression was devout and disdainful, sincere and arrogant. He spoke word by word like a heavy hammer striking the sky. It was the first time the Qiu Offense army had taken the initiative to attack. The intense desire to fight made Qiu Tianqing not willing to defend. Tang Tian was extremely familiar with the military ranks of the Southern Cross Army, but, General. Tang Tian was shocked. A general was a military rank just below a marshal, and what was even more terrifying was the command of a general. A command of 200,000 men was enough to launch a large-scale battle. Xiaoman hugged her Zanbato happily, the haze on her face swept away. The illusory figures stood straight like spears, their arms were like a forest. They bowed to Ah Exin and replied, "Yes. Southern Cross Army General." Ah Exin is actually a general. The fighting intent in his heart was unprecedentedly intense. To be able to fight against a general-level opponent, it was a rare opportunity. The rage in Qiu Tianqing's heart soared. Qiu Tianqing's expression was calm. He knew that it was a knot in his heart, and had been haunting him for the past few years like a nightmare. If he could not break it, his future would be difficult to improve. And as long as he broke it, his future would be limitless. But after thinking about it for the sake of the plan, Qiu Tianqing suppressed the rage in his heart, and accepted the Huo family's suggestion. He had to admit at the moment dealing with Temple was the most important matter. Wartime Regulation 9. General Exin of the army has full authority to take over the entire army. All divisions of the army are to await orders. Qiu Tianqing did not want the Huo family's help at all. He had the confidence to destroy the despicable enemies. "I can't even deal with a group of nameless people and still need the help of the Huo family. How can that be? If it was truly the Macefield Trading's family, then it would be a huge loss of face." It could be said that other than the commander, he was the second in command, and his authority was even higher than the vice commander, because the vice commander was usually in charge of logistics. "Since all of you are not willing to rest in peace, then let us fight together." General Huo's face changed. The previously lifeless illusory figures suddenly released a terrifying aura, as though they were alive. This was an army that had gone through a chaotic world, and only the legendary armies in the chaotic world could possess such a congealed killing intent. No one knew about these changes. At this moment, everyone's gazes were attracted to the battlefield. Just as Jizai was about to rush over, he caught a glimpse of Tang Tian from the corner of his eye. He stopped himself. This is... The Southern Cross Army's foundation was truly unfathomable. The soldiers of the Qiu Offense Army opened up their arms. The gold lines on their bodies lit up like snakes. They swam along their bodies to their arms, and when they swam to their palms suddenly lit up with a gray light aura. 20 illusory figures flew out, and their low and deep horns resonated throughout the ocean of peace. For example, the mysterious Bing of the Southern Alliance was an outstanding commander. But now he wanted to see how Ah Exin fought. At this moment, Ah Exin was exuding an unparalleled aura. Among the countless figures, he was extremely eye-catching, shining with boundless radiance. In the air, Qiu Tianqing's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. He ordered, "Battle formation, clear autumn." The sound of chains moving in the sky converged into one, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. 10,000 gray chains descended from the sky, like 10,000 frantically growing gray vines. The scene was undoubtedly extremely oppressive. No one had ever seen such a spectacular and strange scene before, causing their scalps to go numb. This is the true killing technique. Is there something that I can't see? Damn it. Second to the right, float 7m higher. Ah Exin floated at the highest point, the position of the sword tip. More accurately speaking, they were all attracted to Ah Exin. Spirit generals were rare in the Sacred Saint Galaxy, but they were in the Saint Continent, and all of them were top-notch families, which family did not have a spirit general, thus they were naturally knowledgeable. Ordinary spirit generals were unable to attract their attention, but they knew how powerful top-notch spirit generals were. Compared to General Huo's shock, Qiu Tianqing was much calmer. It was not that his mental state was better than General Huo, but because he was in a state of battle, his mental state was more focused and did not have as many distracting thoughts. The orderly formation was extremely stern. The killing intent seemed to have materialized and flowed wantonly. The ocean of peace beneath their feet seemed to have been frozen by the killing intent, causing the air above the ocean of peace to immediately slow down. General Huo's mouth was wide open as he stared blankly at the Qiu Offense Army in the sky. Qiu Tianqing is actually so powerful? He did not dare believe his own eyes. The top-notch prestigious families were all extremely rich and had a few military generals with the standard of famed generals, so there was nothing to fuss about. Traces of mist permeated out from the chains, and the withering aura started to spread out. Qiu Tianqing was extremely pleased. The outcome had been decided, and the enemy had no chance of turning the tables. For example, Sophie, who was a spirit general and commanded the banner of knights. The illusory soldier's footsteps were silent, but the dense footsteps sounded out in everyone's hearts. Law domain. The 10,000 chains stretched taut like spears. Gold lines appeared on the chains, forming a gigantic cage. The reason why the Qiu family was able to do well in the circle was because of Qiu Suhua's existence. Any great general was a powerful strategical grade existence. He suppressed his urge and his gaze landed back on the ocean of peace. Autumn law domain. Boss does not seem to be worried at all. His heart was moved. With boss's eyesight, whatever I can see, boss will definitely be able to see. But why isn't boss anxious at all? The entire formation was like a vertical sword, the illusory soldiers stacked on top of each other, forming a thick and sturdy sword body. It was unknown how many times they had sighed, but at that moment, everyone had the same thought. Compared to the tens of thousands of chains descending from the sky, Xian's side was extremely calm. But with his smooth and flowing orders, the strict formation quickly changed. Every order would cause a change in the formation. The illusory soldiers' movements were simple and concise. Just like Xian's orders, they were direct and efficient without any sloppiness. Qiu Tianqing's face changed. When Xian made his move, he did not feel anything. But now, the killing intent that these illusory soldiers were emitting made his heart palpitate. They are true elites that have been through hundreds of battles. Even the soldiers under me do not have such terrifying killing intent. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. No one could understand it. No one had ever set up such a strange battle formation before. It had to be known that there were many things to pay attention to in a formation, and it was not just a random formation. But everyone knew that it was impossible for him to make any preparations. Qiu Tianqing, who dared to challenge the 5 great generals, how could he be afraid of the remnant spirits of the legendary army that had died many years ago? Their footsteps were short and concentrated, and in a few seconds they were all in formation. The gray chains descended from the sky above the formation, but there seemed to be an invisible wall that blocked the gray chains. Inside the chains, Xian had already completed his arrangements, causing everyone's eyes to tremble. They had never heard of a spirit general with the rank of general. Even the mysterious Bing of the Southern Alliance was definitely not a general. To these prestigious families, although a powerful spirit general like Sophie was good, but it was not as attractive as a commander-type spirit general. The Qiu family is so powerful. Time was merciless, the world was cruel, it could destroy their bodies and erase their memories, but the faith that was deeply imprinted in their souls would never be erased. After 10,000 years they were still so passionate, how could people not feel respect for them? Middle 3 divisions, float 15 m. It's finally done. General Hua could also see it. He tried his best to recall, which legendary army in history has a general called Xian? What a strange formation. Ji Zhe, who was observing Tang Tian in the dark, suddenly caught a flash of excitement in Tang Tian's eyes, and immediately realized that he had missed something. Every single palm had a gray chain extending out. They were like frantically growing gray vines that continued to extend and grow. But what Tang Tian felt was powerful was not that, but the Southern Cross Army's spirit, brand and faith. Tang Tian had seen many powerhouses with deep foundations, for example Temple. But the Southern Cross Army's spirit, energy and spirit was something that no other family had. It was different from time laws. The aging of autumn laws was not caused by the flow of time, but directly caused one's life to enter the later stages, and that was the most terrifying aspect. Now that General Hua saw Qiu Tianqing, who was not inferior to Qiu Suhua, how could he not be dumbstruck? That is completely illogical. For such a powerful spirit general to appear in front of them, how could they not be attracted to him? They were also filled with curiosity. How strong will a general-grade spirit general be? Qiu Tianqing's eyes flashed with a look of joy. He bellowed, "Open!" But no matter how powerful the Qiu family is, they already have Qiu Suhua. No matter how high the standards of a top-notch prestigious family were, the 5 great generals were definitely top-notch, and were also what every family desired. The chains were already extremely close to the law domain. That feeling was as though no matter how much time had passed, when the Southern Cross Army's battle horn was blown, countless figures would crawl out from the ashes of history and gather under the banner of the past. Here and there arched up a little, there lowered a little, the formation in Xian's hands was constantly changing. Seeing that the figures were suddenly filled with vigor, Tang Tian felt that something was amiss. That should be their innate strength. Xian's first sentence was something that Tang Tian had heard before. At that time when Tang Yi came out from the spirit chamber, he had shouted out those words. In this region the autumn laws were greatly strengthened, and any life forms would quickly wither and die. If a living person was inside, they would age in an extremely short period of time. He was methodical, his expression was calm, his words were clear and forceful, direct and efficient, without any sloppiness. And what was surprising was that his orders were like flowing water, without any hesitation, as though he had long thought of a plan and was just repeating it. Chapter 907. That was the current situation. After understanding this, he made up his mind. Rumbling sounds rang out incessantly. In the depths of the sea, it sounded like mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. The cold aura enveloped the ocean of peace. The autumn frost appeared once again. This time it was even thicker than before. The thick autumn frost extended along the chains, causing the black color to retreat. The white autumn frost was like demonic moss growing on the surface of their bodies. Their vitality was withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a short while, 1/3 of their bodies were covered in autumn frost. When their bodies were completely covered in autumn frost, their lives had come to an end. Wind, coat and frost, autumn in my heart, how do I attract it? 3 blood and 3 withering, the autumn wind, the autumn rain and the autumn frost. All living things are bleak and desolate, born but not flourishing, time passes early, never to return. He was stunned for a moment. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Qiu Tianqing's autumn laws were truly not to be underestimated, especially with his high realm. It was something that no one could defend against. But if Qiu Tianqing had lived in the Xin domain before, he would definitely know that there were differences between different laws. Ji Zhe sucked in a breath of cold air from the bottom of his heart. This was the first time he had seen a law domain. Although it was not a complete law domain, it was infinitely close to a law domain, or it could be said that it already had many of the characteristics of a law domain. For example, the autumn frost was the result of the autumn law's corrosion. Any energy barrier in the sacred region was like air in front of it. Its corrosion was not on the energy level, which was the most terrifying part of it. The pitch-black seawater flowed past the ankles of the illusory soldier at the bottom. The red cracks on the soldier's body suddenly lit up. The seawater covered their calves, thighs and waists. The pale and cold autumn frost was instantly melted by the seawater. A black figure walked out from the palace. This black figure was actually formed from the seawater of the ocean of peace. This black waterman had faint red cracks all over his body as though they were blood scars. He flew to the middle of the soldiers and with a pious expression he chanted in a low voice, "The Qiu clan of the sacred region has existed for 10,000 years, passing down the torch only I, Qiu." This was the legendary natural anomaly. Legend has it that when something extraordinary was born and collided, there would be a phenomenon. The so-called phenomenon was actually the resonance between the laws. However, it was extremely difficult to resonate with the laws of heaven and earth. In the comparatively easier Xin domain palace, Gu Shui had once gained enlightenment and caused a rainbow to appear in the sky. But in the sacred Saint Galaxy where energy was abundant, the difficulty of resonating with the laws of heaven and earth was extremely high, and it was many times higher than in the Xin domain, thus the phenomenon became a legend. His reputation was not inferior to Qiu Tianqing, but he was filled with admiration for Qiu Tianqing. The Qiu family is truly heaven-defying. They produced Qiu Suhua, and now they actually produced Qiu Tianqing. When the other soldiers saw this, they bit their tongues in unison and spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto their own chains. As expected, the spread of the black color was greatly reduced. Sensing that their autumn laws were decreasing at an alarming rate, the formation's operations became extremely sluggish. Qiu Tianqing's face changed. How is this possible? The black seawater flowed along the chains, causing Qiu Tianqing to feel an immense pressure. The autumn law melted like snow, causing him to feel fear. At the moment, the one with the greatest pressure was undoubtedly Qiu Tianqing. Qiu Shuang, who was initially surging with aura, suddenly met with an invisible resistance. His expression changed. The autumn law had always been unstoppable. Even energy barriers were unable to block it. What was this invisible resistance? Everyone's eyes were once again fixated on it. After following Zhou and the rest for a period of time, Xian's understanding of laws had become much deeper. He had comprehended it in the past, but he had never managed to break through it, and with just a few pointers from Zhou and the rest, many things became clear. Tang Tian praised his own foresight while opening his eyes wide. He was also filled with curiosity. After all, he did not bring out the undying sword, and it was such a shocking scene. What exactly is the Black Sea water? A natural phenomenon. Just at that moment, the calm ocean of peace suddenly underwent a change. The army immediately realized the profoundness of the ocean of death, and found countless of treasures and living souls to throw into the ocean of death, and constructed a resting souls palace in the eye of the ocean, called the Life Palace. Then in other areas of the ocean of death, they constructed 12 side palaces, called the Death Palaces, to guard the ocean of death. Every Death Palace and Life Palace were connected by chains, with the nameplates of the soldiers who had sacrificed themselves. Clear Autumn Lock. This autumn law was already extremely close to a law domain, and anything higher than it could only be a law domain. A loud sound came out and countless black waves suddenly exploded. Xian remained indifferent, as though he did not see anything. Life from death, withered bones give birth to lotuses. The aura of Clear Autumn Lock was not strong, but the killing intent was like a mist, completely enveloping the ocean of peace, and Xian could not avoid it. In a battle between armies, it was a taboo to have no space, as the lack of space often meant that both parties had to fight to the death. Initially, he had some expectations for the spirit general called Xian, as the rank of general gave him too much space to imagine. But when he saw Xian throw the undying sword into the ocean of peace, he was greatly disappointed. Inside the formation, the autumn law pervaded out. The gray mist quietly permeated into Xian and the illusory soldiers' bodies, causing white autumn frost to grow on their bodies. Withering, decaying, withering aura pervaded out from their bodies, making them look like a forest in autumn. Every sentence he chanted would cause the soldiers around him to emit a white mist, and in the blink of the eye, the white mist enveloped the entire Zhou offense army. His voice was not loud, but every sentence he chanted would cause him to become even whiter and his aura to increase. The terrifying aura instantly caused Qiu Tianqing's fighting intent to crumble. No one knew what the ocean of peace was, and no one knew where it came from. They had all neglected the ocean of peace, the black and unfathomably deep ocean. Others might neglect the might of the ocean of peace, but Xian would not, because he had personally participated in it in the past. The Southern Cross Army was not proficient in laws, but they knew how miraculous it was to be reborn from death. They did not think of changing it but continued to nourish it, and through the nurturing of time, it finally forged its supreme might. The ocean of peace seemed to have come alive. The pitch-black seawater extended along the chains, and wherever it passed, the bright gold patterns on the chains would immediately dim down, and the gray chains would be dyed black, making it look extremely strange. From the start, he had never planned to use the remnant spirits of the undying sword to fight to the death. He could not bear to do so. Although the remnant spirits were only left with their obsession, but because of that he could not bear to do so. Their obsession was extremely deep, but it was still an obsession, and once it was damaged they would completely disappear from the world, leaving nothing behind. He laughed at himself. That is normal. Macefield Tradings is just a small family. How can they have a true general spirit general? Bang! General Hu's expression became sluggish. He watched as the black seawater extended along the gray chains. He felt extremely uncomfortable just now. The 10,000 chains dropped down and grew frantically like vines. But now the black seawater was also like vines growing along the gray chains. Alright, so be it, at least I can still live. Everyone's face revealed looks of shock. The chains erupted with light auras. Xian's actions were unexpected and extremely simple. He released the undying sword in his hand. The undying sword fell into the ocean of peace, but did not cause any ripples. The Zhou offense army's soldiers all had blood mist erupt from their feet, hearts and eyebrows. As soon as the blood mist left their bodies, it turned white at a visible speed. Before it dissipated, the originally bright red blood mist had turned into a white mist, and fused with the white mist in the air. Before anyone could react, another black waterman walked out with the same faint traces of blood. Everyone held their breaths and opened their eyes wide, afraid of missing out on any details. Damn it! He could not bear to do it. This. The ocean of peace that continued to rise was like a terrifying and greedy beast, devouring everything it could. The ocean of peace was something that the Southern Cross Army had spent countless of time to create. It used to be a dead sea that was filled with death aura, and anyone who went near it would be corroded by the death aura. After that, the commander realized that the death aura was a law of death, and to the living it was a poison, but to the dead it was a paradise. Could it be that the ocean of peace is a law domain? Jizai was dumbstruck. Above the raging Black Sea, a regiment of white mist that resembled a cloud dropped down 10,000 chains. Exen did not raise his head to look at the sky, his gaze never left the ocean of peace beneath his feet. When he saw the bronze palace he muttered, "Palace of Peace. I am truly sorry." General Hu shook his head, although Qiu Tianqing's clear autumn lock was not a true law domain, but it was extremely close and he could not think of any methods to escape. Even if he was trapped inside he would not be able to escape even if he had wings. He looked at Qiu Tianqing, his heart filled with emotions. General Hu's expression changed, he was overwhelmed with shock, he never thought that the battle would be so intense. The strength of both parties had far exceeded his expectations. All sorts of methods were unleashed and for a moment, it was a huge blow to him. The white mist seeped into the chains, causing the 10,000 chains to revolve. Their clanking sounds resonated through the sky, like a torrent crashing down. The sound even overshadowed the ocean of peace. The battle formation was like a forest, the atmosphere was extremely tense. When he saw that there were no bronze plates on the red ropes but emptiness, his face revealed a smile. Just at that moment the doors of the bronze palace opened. The black seawater not only extended along the gray chains, the entire surface of the sea was rising, as though there was a monster awakening in the bottomless sea. His gaze landed on the surface of the sea that was continuously rising. The surging seawater was like a terrifying monster that was frantically devouring the illusory soldiers. But the illusory soldiers above did not move at all, as though they were ignoring the rising seawater. Qiu Tianqing's clear autumn lock was firmly in control of the situation. Exen was unable to dodge and Qiu Tianqing's army was similarly unable to move. The strongest, most complicated, and most vast three fundamental laws were the three main pillars of the law system, and they were time, space, and life and death. One by one the black watermen walked out of the bronze palace like a tide. What was surprising was that Exen and the rest did not make any movements to dodge. The illusory soldiers maintained their positions and movements without moving. Jizai's gaze was fixated on the ocean of peace. Only then did he realize that he had neglected the ocean of peace. He frowned, then relaxed, feeling that his mind was in a mess. What is the black seawater? A type of energy? No energy can defeat the autumn laws so easily. Laws? Jizai shook his head as well. The clash between laws would definitely not be so silent, unless there was a huge disparity between the two parties. A majestic and ancient bronze palace gradually surfaced from the water. The bronze palace's doors were tightly shut, with 4 black stars engraved on it, forming an irregular cross. On the 4 walls the words, "Do not bless eternal peace," were engraved. 12 red ropes, one end was tied to the roof of the palace, while the other end was inserted deep into the ocean of peace. It was stretched taut. Inside the bronze palace, there seemed to be an endless number of black watermen, all of them surging out. The black watermen who came out did not say a word. They walked to Exion's side and stood there solemnly. Tang Tian felt that the bronze palace was familiar, as though he had seen it somewhere before. After a while he smacked his head. Isn't this the Southern Cross Army's spirit hall? Qiu Tianqing's face was pale, but his aura was that of a god. But General Hu knew that Qiu Tianqing was truly risking his life. Even if they won, he and the Qiu offense army would be greatly injured. They are formed by the illusory soldiers from before. What goes around comes around. The power of the Ocean of Peace itself was extremely terrifying. As long as they activated the power of the Ocean of Peace, it would be enough. At such a crucial time, it was not a good sign for their side to suffer a loss. But at such a time, even if he was beaten to death, he would not make a move. He was not sure if Qiu Tianqing was rational, but the Macefield Trading's family was also extremely sinister. For some reason, he who was not afraid of anything, felt an indescribable reverence and fear towards the Macefield Trading's family. Sacrifice. Zhou Xian bit the tip of his tongue, the taste of blood permeated his mouth, and the intense pain caused him to sober up. A trace of lingering fear surfaced in his heart. He had been through hundreds of battles, and knew that he had to be even more resolute at such a time. Even a trace of hesitation or fear would cause them to die a tragic death. It was a situation of survival in the midst of death, and life could only be obtained through death. His heart was still filled with doubts, but the phenomenon in the sky had scared his soul out of his body, causing his face to turn as white as paper. Ever since the start of the battle, it was the first time he had thoughts of retreating. Even the legendary phenomenon has appeared. What the hell is in front of me? The sky suddenly darkened, black clouds converged from all directions. The previously clear and boundless sky had turned into a dark night in the blink of an eye. Silver lightning surged through the thick layers of clouds, and the oppressive sound of thunder sounded out like a heavy drum in everyone's hearts. Zhou Xian knew that he had no path of retreat. He roared and spat out a mouthful of blood. When the blood sprayed onto the chains, it quickly seeped into the chains and disappeared. The light aura of the chains erupted, and the black aura that was spreading from the other end of the chains was stopped. General Hu felt that he did not understand. That's right, there were many things that he did not understand. When the last Blackwater person walked out of the Bronze Palace, the palace doors closed and sank back into the ocean of peace. And the most miraculous thing was that deep in the ocean of death, where the death chi was the densest, there was an ocean eye that was nurturing an astonishing amount of life. When he received the undying sword, he gained enlightenment. The ocean of peace had completely fused with the 13 palaces and the remnant spirits of the armies, and that was why the ocean of peace was inside the undying sword. Rumble. Unfortunately, it is not the banner of knights, he muttered in his heart. If it was the banner of knights, it would be perfect. The banner of knights was their main goal. They could achieve their goal, and at the same time they could whittle down the strength of the Qiu family, killing two birds with one stone. This is... Everyone's eyes flashed with suspicion. Zhou Xian's clear autumn lock had firmly controlled the situation, and everyone was waiting for Xian to use some shocking method to turn the tables. This young man truly has good foresight. Zhou Xian was chanting in the air. This was the ocean of peace. The ocean of peace that the Southern Cross Army had spent all their efforts to create, and after 10,000 years of nurturing, it had completely transformed. Why was his autumn hair so weak? They didn't have a physical body, but they would also completely dissipate. At that time no trace would be left. They were a bunch of legends. More and more Blackwater people gathered around Xian. They lined up neatly and silently. At this moment, only Xian was left on the surface of the sea. All the illusory soldiers had been submerged by the seawater. Xian did not care about Autumn Frost, who had reappeared. He looked at the sea beneath his feet with a look of anticipation. He had another method, which was the ocean of peace. The black seawater originally only had death energy, and only the ocean eye had vitality. However, after 10,000 years of nourishment, those precious treasures had long been consumed by the Dead Sea. With the transformation of the Palace of Peace, the life and death chi in the Ocean of Peace were no longer as distinct as they were in the past, but were gradually merging into one. In the other cities of Saint Continent, there were people flying into the sky, their faces filled with shock as they looked towards the direction of the Qiu Offense Institute. They could sense that the energy around them had become abnormal. Although they did not know what was happening, but the phenomenon in the sky was definitely something powerful. It was the gap of laws that could not be crossed. As expected, the autumn law chains met the seawater that contained the life and death laws, and were immediately corroded. Because they did not know what the ocean of peace was. In his heart he only felt excitement and anticipation, regardless of what kind of scene it was. The undying sword was worthy of it. What method is this? The seawater was actually able to corrode the chains. General Hu was shocked. But even Tang Tian was dumbstruck. The ocean of peace that did not have any reaction in his hands was actually able to cause such a phenomenon in Xian's hands. It was truly too powerful. Jizai was dumbstruck. What the hell is that black water? The enemy's formation seemed to be a perfect imitation of a law domain. The gold patterns on the gray chains were autumn laws, but in front of the black water, they were unable to resist at all. A loud sound came out from the depths of the ocean of peace. The surface of the sea suddenly started to churn violently. The winds howled as though countless evil dragons were stirring up waves. Exen could guess everyone's expression and a faint smile surfaced on his face. How can we guess it? Exen, who was standing on the surface of the sea, did not move. His eyes erupted with excitement and he bellowed, "Come out." If Exen was able to break out of Clear Autumn Lock, Qiu Tianqing and his army would definitely be heavily injured. And if Exen was unable to break out of Clear Autumn Lock, there would only be one result for him, and that was to die in the formation. Chapter 908. Bang. The entire battlefield was silent. Everyone was shocked by the attack just now. Melissa asked carefully, "Master, did you meet with some trouble?" Her heart continued to sink. Xian's entire body trembled, his face turned pale white, and he did not even dare to struggle. This dual violent lady is capable of anything. Dual violent lady Xian had secretly given Xiao Ran a nickname, meaning that she was a violent and explosive woman. At times it is not a good thing to give a nickname too accurately. 8 moves, the 8 great killing techniques of the Southern Cross Army in the past, how many people still remember them? It was an unfamiliar face. Melissa had never seen him before, as the Hua family and Macefield Tradings did not have any interactions in the past. But Melissa was no longer the Amon of the past. The Hua family man was tall and straight, with an imposing appearance. One look and anyone could tell that he was not an ordinary disciple of the Hua family. He suddenly took a step in the air and his figure suddenly soared by a few meters and stood above the formation. Exen returned to the trading ship, and upon seeing Xiao Ran's sluggish face, he immediately became excited and his nose pointed upwards. Are you shocked? Are you stunned? Are you starting to worship me? Oh my, I told you that I was also very fierce in the past. Come, let us have an exchange of flesh and soul. The black water soldiers in front of him slowly sank into the ocean of peace. The seawater slowly submerged them, but they maintained their saluting posture and did not move, all the way until they were completely submerged. He muttered lightly, a look of reminiscence flashing past his eyes. How many people can remember those 4 sentences, and how many people can remember the meaning behind those 4 sentences? General Hua regained his vision. He stared at the black hole in the sky in shock. That is a crack formed from the shattering of space. His face twitched, his fingers trembled. Who exactly is he? How can he shatter space with one strike? He opened up his arms and placed them in front of his chest, forming a perfect circle. The black hole seemed to be connected to the void. It was bottomless, and a gloomy and cold aura floated out from the hole. The surroundings of the hole were covered with spiderweb-like black cracks. In the Honorable Marshall Continent, there were 5 top-grade prestigious families: the Croft family, Hua family, Chiu family, Mo family, and Vicari. The Hua family and the Chiu family were both top-notch families. They had just suffered a setback at the hands of the Chiu family, and now another top-notch family had come knocking on their door. How could they not be shocked? Xian's legs were flailing about in the air, with a hand grabbing onto his neck. Xiao Man spoke fiercely. "You forgot about the pain after the scar healed? But so what? He would still do the same no matter how stupid he was. How great of a setback was it for these people to lose their composure like this? Tang Tian had seen Uncle Bing's technique of controlling aura, and was shocked at that time, but compared to Exen today, it paled in comparison. Tang Tian's reaction was the fastest, and he fled as soon as he could. Everyone looked at Exen with a little more respect. Jizai's legs kept trembling. These days he had hung out with Exen for a long time, mocking and ridiculing him. God, why did you have to make such a joke? Why is my heart beating so fast? Why am I shaking so much? Master Exen, can we start over? The leader was furious and created his own green-red cross scythe. Seems like it will definitely be a crushing defeat, Melissa thought. A painful defeat would usually leave a shadow in one's heart. But although she was worried, she still believed in Tang Tian and the rest's ability to recover. She was also encouraging herself at such a time she had to be even more resolute and not waver. As though they had a telepathic connection, Qiu Tianqing, who was in the sky, roared at the same time, "Kill!" Tang Tian thought that Qiu Tianqing had actually seen through their disguise, and their plans had all gone down the drain. Bang! Exen smashed onto the deck fiercely, countless of stars dancing in front of him. He laid on the ground in a daze. Seems like the script isn't right. Shouldn't the cows be pouncing on me with looks of worship? Then I will be buried. Oh my, the legendary feeling of suffocation. The dazzling silver light devoured everything, causing the entire world to be covered in white. No matter how good one's eyesight was, they were unable to see anything. Even their skin that was exposed to the air felt as though it was being pierced by needles. The terrifying shock wave wreaked havoc, causing General Hua, who was close to it, to be unable to react in time. As though he was smashed by an iron wall, he was flung out over 30 m before he stabilized himself. Can we talk things out? Xiaoman sneered. Hee, if you don't fight for 3 days you will tear the tiles off the roof. If not for the fact that you did not embarrass us in front of the young master, I will make sure that you shrink back a bit. Xin maintained his salute and did not move. Xin shook his head. The Qiu offense army had it easy. If not for him reuniting with his comrades, he would not even bother to use it. Xin raised his head. The surging airflow caused his hair to become messy, but he did not blink at all. The stars in the formation below flew towards Xin. Melissa felt fear from the bottom of her heart. A bone-chilling cold enveloped her entire body. She was extremely clear on how strong Jizai and the rest were. But what truly made the old man decide to gamble was the unique aura that Jizai and the rest had. Tens of thousands of thick and solid chains intertwined together, covering the sky in Xian's eyes. The air trembled. Xin, who was lying down, could feel his body tensing up, and was unable to escape. After experiencing the cruelest battles, he had never felt fear. He opened his eyes with all his might. Although he could not see anything, the dazzling silver light caused his face to turn white. He was still all right, although his blood was churning, but he was not injured. The soldiers under him were not as fortunate. They were scattered and wailing on the ground. That's right, to be able to meet everyone, I am truly fortunate. He knew that he was not fighting alone, and knew that everyone in the past had never forgotten the oath they made. In truth, he also knew that there was no meaning in struggling. It was as though the Southern Cross Army had already been destroyed, and even if they were to be rebuilt again, it would no longer be the army of the past. I can't dodge. Then let's meet force with force. His vision suddenly darkened as a black figure that resembled a mountain rapidly enlarged in his eyes. All of the soldiers in the formation below had their fingers blossoming like flowers, and in their palms, a light aura flashed. The black ocean of peace was like a deep and unfathomable curtain of night, suddenly lighting up with light auras as though the sky was filled with stars. Buzz, countless of light auras flew up from below and struck his body. His body did not tremble at all. It was as though he was lying on the surface of the ocean, as though his entire being was embedded in a bright halo. His entire body was covered in dazzling light auras. Xiaoman's originally sluggish face quickly turned red. Following that, a regiment of flames ignited in her eyes. The zanbato in her hand brought forth the sound of the wind. Bang! The thick blade accurately struck Xin's face like a fly swatter. Xin's mouth revealed a faint smile. He had an expression of enjoyment. It's a familiar feeling. The tens of thousands of chains that hung down from the clouds were like 10,000 gigantic pythons dancing. They hissed and pounced towards Xin. The tens of thousands of terrifying chains danced, covering the sky like empty tie pressing down, causing people to be unable to dodge, causing their hearts to be filled with despair. Countless white mist pervaded the air, the autumn frost scattered down like snow. The reunion of comrades after 10,000 years is a happy thing. Knowing that my former comrades are the same as me doing stupid and meaningless things makes me happy. That's us, we are like that, so stupid we are never different from others. The dazzling light auras illuminated Xin's face. He had a calm expression as though he was reminiscing, sighing and reminiscing. Star Cannon, I never thought that after so many years I would not be rusty at all. The opponent's autumn laws were unprecedentedly powerful. All the other laws in the surrounding space were pushed out by it. Tang Tian laid on the rattan chair, enjoying the fruits that Chia fed him, watching the pitiful Xin being ordered around by Xiaoman. Where was the elegance of a general? Thinking about Xin's heroic bearing that looked down on the world, and then looking at his current submissive state, all sorts of emotions converged into one sentence in Tang Tian's mind: Chia is still the best. Tang Tian did not expect her to ask such a question. He thought for a moment and said, "It's just a small problem." The once fierce, the once flamboyant, the once bloodied and fiery had flown for over 10,000 years, stepping on the void. The spatial cracks gradually disappeared. Every spatial dimension had the ability to regenerate itself, and once a spatial dimension lost its ability to regenerate, it meant that the spatial dimension would gradually lose control and be close to destruction. Xian's attack had brought a huge shock to Tang Tian. Xian's gaze swept across his comrades. They were only left with a strand of obsession, and even though he had the Ocean of Peace's seawater to reconstruct their bodies, they still did not have any memories or intelligence. If not for the Ocean of Peace's seawater containing life and death as well as their aura, they would not even be able to reconstruct their bodies. Xian's roar was like an explosion of thunder. A surging pillar of light surged out from the rings on his arms. Melissa's heart jumped. She knew that in the eyes of her master, no matter how big a problem was, it was just a small problem, and her heart immediately jumped to her throat. Xian was already satisfied. Jizai and the rest were not as lucky as Tang Tian, and were even more affected by the explosion. All of them were in a sorry state. Their hair was disheveled, but luckily they were strong, although they looked to be in a sorry state, but no one was injured. Tang Tian's heart was filled with sympathy, and decided to find a chance to ridicule Uncle Bing when they return. Uncle Bing is truly pitiful. The Hua family is here. For such a grand occasion, only by winning would they not let it down. Xian flew out like a sandbag, bang bang bang. He was like a meatball bouncing around inside the trading ship. Melissa ordered Wiley to quickly send the news to Tang Tian, and at the same time she decided to take the initiative to meet the Hua family. Of course, it was just a shock in terms of power, as Tang Tian knew that such a technique was not suitable for him. Star Cannon's essence was actually a type of control aura. It was a technique unique to military generals, and others could not learn it. The white light had not dissipated, and Tang Tian could not see clearly. His awakened god armor that was effective every time was not of much use at the moment. He thought that the laws in the region were in chaos. Tang Tian had never seen such a chaotic scene before, and he was even worried that the space would collapse. Regardless, she was the owner of Macefield Tradings, and there was no reason for her to retreat. The smile on Xian's face suddenly disappeared. A sharp and ferocious aura suddenly erupted from his body, as though an ancient dragon had awoken from its slumber. A blazing light pillar struck the chains that were descending from the sky. What was even funnier was that the commander did not learn a technique that no one had thought of: cross scythe. Out of the 8 major killing techniques, the cross scythe was publicly acknowledged to be the easiest killing technique, and was also the killing technique with the most number of people learning it. But for some reason the commander was unable to learn it. The battlefield is eternal. We will forever fight side by side. Jizai felt that his life was filled with darkness, and had already left a shadow in his heart. Young Miss Melissa is truly a natural beauty. I am Huoli Rual. I greet young Miss Melissa. The red-caped man bowed politely. Huoli Rual. But when she found Jizai, she saw that Jizai's soul had left his body. His gaze was in a daze, and the unease in her heart became even stronger. She then looked for the others, only to realize that all of them were the same. She stood in the courtyard for a long time, but no one bothered about her. She greeted a few of them, but they were all extremely slow. Xian's face was calm. He had a smile on his face, as though he was narrating an extremely simple matter. We all have the same flames flowing in our veins, and the same beliefs are imprinted in our souls. Xian straightened his neck and used all his strength to speak. Oily hair. Xian's face was filled with fear as he looked at the Zanbato in Xiaoman's other hand, who was waving it below him. But Star Cannon. But what did I see on their faces today? After 10,000 years of tempering, they have never given up. Seems like Xian definitely tortured Uncle Bing like a dog in the past. Melissa's mouth was bitter. He was the most famous genius of the Hua family, but he was even more famous for his explosive temper. As long as the other party was unhappy, he would destroy the branch in a matter of minutes. When the last ripple dissipated, the Ocean of Peace regained its calmness. The pitch-black Ocean of Peace was visibly fading, until it disappeared, and a bronze sword landed in Xian's hands. The bronze sword's blade became black and shiny, like a pool of black water. The original crack seemed to have sunk into the sword's blade and could be faintly seen. But the might of this move is truly terrifying. He was hardworking, tenacious, courageous and fearless, decisive in his actions and never sloppy. It was these precious qualities that made the old man participate in the gamble that concerned the fate of the family. "This humble one is Melissa, I greet young noble." Melissa bowed. She purposely put on a weak look, to prevent the other party from being too vile. After all, men would usually be more courteous to women. As expected of generals, they are all perverts. With that, he retracted the smile on his face and with a stern expression he bowed to the soldiers in front of him. Melissa's heart trembled. "Hua family." The bright light auras floating around his body suddenly converged towards the center of his arms, converging into an even brighter light spot. The light spot in the center of his arms became brighter, and in a moment, it became so bright that it could not be seen with the naked eye. Xian's figure was completely enveloped by the dazzling light aura, and could not be distinguished. The young man, the general, the Xian, had awoken at that moment. If not for him personally witnessing it, he would never believe that there was such a terrifying attack in the world. Melissa had absolute trust in her grandfather's judgment, and the conclusion that she had secretly observed along the way had further confirmed it. In her heart, all of them had steel-like willpower and an unafraid heart. Xian was able to be promoted to the rank of general, and become the second in command of the entire army. Other than his outstanding foresight and astonishing talent, the most important reason was that he was the only member who had mastered the 8 major killing techniques. Even the commander was only able to master 7 of them. When Tang Tian and the rest returned to Macefields trading in Snow City, Melissa was startled for a moment. Why are they back so quickly? According to Tang Tian's plan, they were prepared to go all out and muddy the waters. The light aura in front of him dimmed and dissipated, and his vision returned to normal. The gigantic python-like chains that filled the sky had disappeared. The Qiu offense army with the 3 blood and 3 withering Qiu offense army had disappeared, and where they stood, a black hole floated in the air. What responded to him was a uniform military salute. "The spirit of the soldier does not dissipate, the battlefield is eternal, the cross in my heart, the stars do not fall." Walking to the front hall, a man in a fiery red cape stood in the center of the hall. Thinking about the past, Xian could not help but smile, and as he smiled, his face revealed a bit of killing intent. "That's right, it's such a good day, how can I use an ordinary technique to end it? I've lost my soul. In the past, this technique was only used to kill nameless people. Thinking about it, there is nothing strange about it. That is the Qiu family, and it is not surprising for us to lose to them. Seems like I have to find some time to console them. Losing to the Qiu family is nothing to be ashamed of, and there is no need to be depressed." Suddenly, Uncle Wiley walked in with an ugly expression. Xian opened up his arms as though he was welcoming the tens of thousands of chains, and his body fell backwards. "After 10,000 years, we have finally met again." Melissa felt as though she was struck by lightning, her eyes darkened and she almost fell to the ground. Too terrifying. But seeing that Tang Tian did not have the intention to speak, she could only leave. It was not good to ask Tang Tian, so she decided to ask Jizai and the rest what had happened. On the way back to Macefield Tradings, Xian was dejected the entire time, and did not have the attitude of a victor. Xian floated to the front of the formation, looking at the stiff, expressionless faces, he felt warmth in his heart. They stood there without moving, all of their faces facing him. Their gazes looked towards the sky, their eyes that had experienced the vicissitudes of life, were as calm as water, without a single ripple, like a mirror reflecting the clouds and chains in the sky. Ever since Tang Tian left, Melissa had been on tenterhooks. The entire Macefield Tradings family had placed their bets on Tang Tian, and if Tang Tian lost, the Macefield Tradings family would fall into an abyss of eternal damnation. Law domain. The entire region was now a true law domain. In this space they had been locked down and any attempts to dodge would be futile. Melissa clenched his teeth and walked towards the hall. They could not see anything, their faces were filled with fear and their hearts were filled with fear. They had never seen such a violent attack before. "After 10,000 years, even if all of you are left with is a strand of obsession, I am willing to do so." Melissa was filled with despair. But the shockwave caused his entire body to go numb. He was overwhelmed with shock, he never expected the might of the attack to be so terrifying. But thinking about it, Xian was a general and could not help but feel relieved. They came with ill intentions. With a sharp gaze, Xian bellowed, "Kill!" Chapter 909. If it was any other time, Melissa might feel awkward, but she would definitely be overwhelmed by the favor. But now, she was helping Lord Tang Tian to poach the Holy Temple's people. The Holy Temple had come to her so enthusiastically. Could it be that the Holy Temple had sensed something? Sophie led the honorable martial banner of knights to sweep through the Chiu family's encampment. Both parties were like fire and water, and there was no longer any possibility of reconciliation. Furthermore, the 5 great aristocratic families were plotting to seize power, which infuriated Temple. Zeus's heart shook. When he came in, he didn't notice that there was someone else beside him. Upon hearing that the entire honorable martial continent was in an uproar, everyone was dumbstruck. No one had ever dared to do such a thing in Temple. Temple was enraged by this, and in the end the current patriarch of the Huo family personally went to Temple to ask for forgiveness from the great clan elder. Only then did the bad influence disappear. There weren't any powerful elders by Master's side. Thinking back to the chains that fell from the sky, Zeus' heart trembled. In the current Temple, the only one who could contend against them was probably Sophie. Fortunately, with the Macefield Trading's family, Temple would have one less problem. Huoli Ruo, who had returned to his family, did not have any intention of stopping. He personally created an army, and in about 2 years there was no news of him. After 2 years he suddenly appeared and brought his army to look for people to fight, calling it actual combat drills, causing the entire honorable martial continent to be in chaos. Fights and arson were common occurrences. He did not let go of the local armies, the guards, the armies of the various families, even the armies of Temple. With Qiu Tianqing's death, the Qiu family's strength was greatly affected. Although there was still Qiu Suhua, but Qiu Suhua was not doing well in the Southern Alliance battlefield, and was being obstructed by the Southern Alliance. Up till now he had not met up with Go Qing Wendao, and it was unknown whether or not he could return. Melissa was dumbstruck as she looked at the 2 important figures in front of her, who were glaring at each other like fighting cocks. Her face was filled with confusion. After that, Huoli Ruo stopped for a long time and became much more mature. He was truly powerful. Adding on his deep background, he climbed up the ranks and became the youngest lieutenant general. However, in the Tiger General's selection that followed, he was unsurprisingly eliminated. Huoli Ruo did not care about the Qiu family at all, as that was something for the higher-ups to worry about. Friends? Zeus retorted, I don't think so. Who is helping the Qiu family to deal with Senior Xin? The visit of the elders of the temple had already made Melissa feel strange, and they were even so enthusiastic. Melissa's feelings could no longer be described as strange. The Macefield Trading's family had interacted with Temple in the past. An elder visiting? What a joke. They have always sent someone over. Get the person in charge to come over to Temple. 2 different voices rang out simultaneously. When Huoli Ruo heard the name of the envoy, his face immediately darkened. Temple's reaction was so fast that it surprised him. He felt that he was already fast enough, but he never expected that the moment he reached Macefield Trading's, Temple would arrive. Zeus made up his mind he had to rope in the Macefield Trading's. Such a powerful force was enough to decide the outcome of the battle. A general-rank spirit general that could shatter space. Forget about now, even during normal times, Temple would be willing to pay any price. He just happened to be at the right time. A general-rank spirit general, tisk tisk. It's finally here. Melissa's heart clenched. Thinking about how Tang Tian and the rest had just lost, and Huoli Ruo had already come to find them, this is a punitive expedition. When Zeus had personally witnessed the shocking battle at the Qiu Offense Institute, he had received a huge impact and was still unable to calm down. He was secretly overwhelmed with shock. The Qiu family had concealed Qiu Tianqing's strength. If he followed the plan and took action against the Qiu family, he would definitely be badly injured. Huoli Ruo was not afraid and sneered, Macefield Tradings is my Huo family's eternal friend. As for Temple, we can only represent Temple. Once the great clan elder made the decision, the entire temple was activated. The entire temple was united against a common enemy, and Temple's authority had never been challenged before. Melissa had heard of the tyrannical deeds of the tyrant since young, so when she knew that the man standing in front of her was Huoli Ruo, she almost fainted. Zeus suddenly became stern and said, Macefield Trading's family is an indispensable family in the honorable martial continent. Any provocation against Macefield Trading's family is a provocation against Temple. He did not notice that Huoli Rua's face was extremely gloomy. The competition in the Hua family was extremely intense, and in the eyes of many, it could be said to be cruel. Huoli Rua was about to say that she followed behind the boat, but suddenly an attendant came in to report. "Young miss, an envoy from temple seeks an audience." Seuss chuckled. "If I remember correctly, the Chiu family is the Hua family's ally. Is this how the Hua family treats their own ally? It truly makes my heart go cold." Melissa felt her head buzzing as though she had been punched in the head. Alright, she would rather be punched than face Huoli Rua. "Envoy from temple?" Melissa was startled, but she replied, "Quickly invite him in." Melissa's heart jumped even more, but she forced out a smile. "It is an honor for clan elder to visit our humble house. How can we say that we are disturbing you? We wish for temple to visit our trading organization every day. But our humble house does not have a senior called Exon." Melissa had a look of suspicion. "I wonder, where did you hear of this senior Exon? I think someone must have misinformed me. He had burned other people's houses, ran to other prestigious families, and beat up all the disciples of his generation. Of course, these were not his most famous battles. What truly made him famous was his dispute with a clan elder of temple. He had snuck into temple, and in front of everyone he had beaten the clan elder until his face was swollen. No wonder Macefield Tradings did not give the Chiu family any face. They had many trump cards in their hands and were not afraid of the Chiu family at all. The Chiu family was truly unlucky, and Seuss rejoiced in their misfortune. But when he heard that temple had sent an envoy, he immediately became worried. If Macefield Tradings was roped in by temple, it would undoubtedly be a huge threat to their plans. Huoli Rua, the most outstanding genius of the Hua family. The current generation of the Hua family did not have any great generals, and Huoli Rua was the strongest military general of the Hua family. Huoli Rua was the most outstanding disciple of the current generation. His talent and strength were impeccable, and could be said to be an outstanding genius. The only thing that hindered him was his fiery temper. It was normal for the disciples of aristocratic families to have a fiery temper, but for Huoli Rua to have such a fiery temper, no one could endure it. Melissa, who was still in shock, calmed down. The other party's tone and attitude did not seem to be looking for trouble. "Oh right, are they looking for Senior Xian?" Melissa thought about it. Huoli Rua seemed to have mentioned something about Senior Xian, and she had placed all her attention on the Iron Mask army. "Senior Xian?" Melissa had a look of suspicion. "I don't have such a person here." Looking at Seuss's age, to be able to be called a senior by him, it had to be an old man with white hair. For a family with such a long history, they were extremely particular about the grooming of their disciples. They knew that these young disciples would determine the future of the family. They encouraged the competition between their disciples, and as long as it was a big family, the competition between the disciples would be extremely intense. Chiu Tianqing was already dead, and if Chiu Suhua did not return, the Chiu family would be in danger. Huoli Rua scoffed. "What a joke. Did my Hua family make a move? Clan Elder Seuss is old, his ears are not too good, it is normal for him to hear wrongly." Impossible. Temple wanted to make a move on the Chiu family, and Seuss was sent to be the vanguard. But her long years of training did not go to waste. She took a deep breath and squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. "I never thought that it would be General Hua. General Hua is so famous, and after seeing you today, your aura is truly extraordinary." After that, his actions once again made him the center of attention in the honorable Marshall continent. On the night he lost the election, he resigned from his position as a lieutenant general without hesitation and returned to the Hua family. Huoli Rua was anxious. He had come here for his own reasons, and without the authorization of the higher-ups, Temple's reaction was much faster than he had expected. What exactly is going on? Only the families that have stood strong for generations can prosper. Seuss laughed. "Then I will come more often in the future." Seems like Temple has always been watching the Chiu family, Huoli Rua thought to himself, and felt that the problem was rather thorny. Of all people, the Chiu family had to provoke Macefield Tradings, to provoke a huge killing machine. That's right, Seuss has witnessed Senior Xian's unparalleled elegance and truly admires him, thus I thicken my face to come. I hope Miss Melissa won't take offense. Seuss chuckled. Huoli Rua was dragged on for a long time and finally became impatient. He placed down the teacup in his hand and said, "This time I am here to visit Senior Exon of the Iron Mask Army." Melissa's scalp went numb. She did not know what to do, but she maintained a calm expression. Oh, General Hua also knows of the Han family's Iron Mask army? After saying a few words in fear, the nervousness in Melissa's heart calmed down. She did not know why Huo Li Ruo was here, so she was careful and laughed it off. One moment he was talking about the weather and the next moment he was talking about the new tea that had just arrived. Huo Li Ruo's face darkened, and just when everyone thought that he was about to explode, he suddenly laughed. Make people's hearts go cold? Who can compare to Temple? Where are the allies from back then? It doesn't feel good to be deserted, does it? Of course, Temple's counterattack was not just to get rid of the Qiu family. Sus had many other responsibilities. For the 5 great clans, having a great general in this generation was a period of prosperity and development. But even if they did not, it did not affect their reputation. After a long period of accumulation, every noble family was as deep as the sea, and no one knew how deep their foundations were. From the moment he entered the door, he had been secretly sizing Melissa up. No matter how he looked, he could not see anything out of the ordinary. But thinking about what he saw, he quickly adjusted his attitude and his thoughts became active. He turned, and when he saw who it was, the smile on his face disappeared and he spoke indifferently. I never thought that General Huo would be here. Sus walked in, his eyes lit up when he saw Melissa. He took a big step forward and spoke passionately. Miss Melissa, I am Temple Clan Elder Sus. I have come to visit and have disturbed you. The inheritance of a family was not something that could be completed in a single generation, and required many generations of continuous accumulation before it could reach its peak. There were many families in the past that had their disciples rise up to become great generals, but after that they disappeared without a trace. Thinking about that, Sus was roused and immediately asked, I wonder if I can pay a visit to Senior Exon? At that time, Huo Li Ruo was the most infamous shit-stirrer in the entire Honorable Martial Continent. Huo Li Ruo obviously enjoyed it and said that it was normal. Chapter 9-10. Thus, Exon appeared in front of Huo Li Ruo and Sus with a swollen face. This caused her to revere General Xiao Ran, as she was extremely envious of General Xiao Ran's valiant and heroic bearing when he held his blade. Therefore, spirit techniques were not carried forward in the sacred region, even though there were many saints in the sacred region. If it wasn't him, then who else could it be? I think I know who the 2 sirs are talking about. I will invite Exan. Senior out. Melissa said straightforwardly. Today's matter was too strange. It was better to let Lord Tang Tian worry about it. Even more families were filled with jealousy with this battle. The Macefield Trading's family could be said to have been reborn. They had completely turned the tables. Please wait a moment. Melissa had no choice but to interrupt the two. I wonder if the 2 of you can describe Senior Xian's appearance? The current Saint Continent was filled with armies, and almost all the famous armies in the Honorable Martial Continent were gathered in the Saint Continent. The commotion caused by the Qiu Offense Institute could not be concealed even if they wanted to. Didn't the plan fail? Why was it that even though he had failed, he was more of a winner than the winner? Looking at the 2 people in front of her who were at daggers drawn, she really wanted to say, you guys really know how to play. Even at this time, Ning, you're still saying such words. Qiu Yu was extremely unhappy. Qiu Su Hua's life and death were unknown, and the Qiu family was currently in the most dangerous situation. Sus could not help but say, that's right, this junior has been in the Sacred Hall for many years and has seen countless geniuses and experts, but I have never heard of someone as strong as Senior. Senior must have been all-powerful and invincible when you were alive. Senior's subordinates were also very strict. Do you have a name? Such an invincible army, how can no one know of it? But their statuses were as different as heaven and earth. Bianchi was ranked at the bottom of Temple while Sus was ranked in the top 5, and was a clan elder with true authority. With Macefield Trading's prestige, they did not have the qualifications to befriend clan elder Sus. Our Qiu family has not lost yet. Qiu Yu said firmly. He was slightly emotional. We still have Su Hua, we still have you. Qiu Tianqing's peerless killing technique, Senior Xian's void shattering, spread throughout the entire Saint Continent like a hurricane. Everyone was guessing the origins of this Senior Xian who had appeared out of nowhere. Everyone was filled with envy. The Macefield Trading's family must have accumulated good karma from their ancestors to be able to gain the favor of an exceptional spirit general. Huo Li Ruo and Sus were roused. They were most afraid that the Macefield Trading's family would be vague with their words. That would be a huge headache for them. Furthermore, they were worried that the Macefield Trading's family would misunderstand that they were using their power to oppress them, and if that happened they would not even have a place to cry. If they angered Senior Exin, it would be fine if he directly attacked them, but if they ruined the plans of the higher-ups, they would not be able to redeem themselves even if they died 10,000 times. Looking at Exin, he had a bloody nose and a swollen face, but he looked like a villain intoxicated by success. Even when he was sitting on the chair, he did not have the slightest bit of a proper posture. We truly lost the battle at the Chiao Offense Institute. The man on the bed said lazily. He ignored the mark on his face and sat down in front of the two of them. He asked casually, "Are you looking for me? Let's wait, aren't Temple and the Alliance trying to rope in Macefield Tradings? Huan Xian, Tang Qing Xian was Xian. Tian Hart I Xiao Tian Xian I Tian Xiao Xian I Tian Feng Xian. Seuss was a shrewd man. He looked as though he was flattering Exin, but in truth he was trying to find out more about Xian's background. How can such an invincible martial artist be unknown in history? Even Chiao Ning himself never thought that the fate of the Chiao family would be placed in his hands. He was in a daze and Chiao Yu's voice became more and more erratic. Exin did not care about the two of them who were dumbstruck and left. In truth, Temple did not care much about the spirit techniques. Aside from being used as reference materials to fill the shelves, they had no use. He waved his hand and interrupted the two of them. "All right, stop talking nonsense. If you have anything to say, then say it. Don't waste my time chasing girls. My time to think about life." And Heaven's Road's martial techniques were a huge system from low to high. There were many different types. To truly choose martial techniques meant that they had to separate from the mainstream army system of the Sacred Saint Galaxy, and that was something that the majority of people could not accept. The Chiao Offense Institute's massacre had just ended, and to the Chiao family, the Institute's defeat was even more of a tragedy. They knew that if they did not immediately come up with a powerful counterattack, then they would quickly be torn to shreds by the hounds and jackals that swarmed over. Huoli Rua was already impatient. He was not Seuss's opponent in bootlicking, and the further he went, the harder it became. Hearing Xian's words, it was as though he had been pardoned and said straightforwardly, "I wish to become Senior's disciple." For the sake of withstanding the corrosion of time, the majority of spirit generals would choose to erase the majority of their memories, leaving behind only the obsession in the depths of their hearts, the memories that they were most unwilling to forget. So from start to finish, the two of them were extremely careful, afraid that their attitude would be the slightest bit bad. He was about to speak, but Exin waved his hand and interrupted him. "I understand your intentions. But I am a person who values benefits and I know that your authority is limited. Go back first and discuss the conditions, then come find me. In any case, I will choose whoever gives me more benefits. Alright, let's stop here for today. I am very busy." "What's going on?" Huoli Rua was the same. Ever since he saw Exin, he had been bootlicking him like it was free. "Hey, you're Huoli Rua, the famous Huoli Rua. Where's the arrogance and untamed? Where's the arrogance and disregard of others? What happened to the unsheathing of blades?" The might of martial techniques were also limited, and were not attractive to the citizens of the honorable martial continent. All right, I will give it my all." Chiao Ning sighed, but a light aura flashed past his eyes before disappearing. "You better plan well. You are better than me when it comes to using your brain." However, this did not improve his situation. In the era where armies ruled, to the Chiao family, a top-notch military general like Chiao Su Hua and Chiao Tianqing were able to intimidate the weak and expand the Chiao family's influence. What's wrong with this world? Is it truly that ghost Xian? She was suspicious. As an old and powerful family, the Chiao family was extremely clear of what kind of fate they would encounter, and they would definitely not allow themselves to be slaughtered. Senior Exin. Temple had always placed importance on one's background, and in Temple's eyes, loyalty was far more important than strength. Of course, Seuss did not expect Senior Exin to be loyal to Temple, but knowing of his background was more reassuring. The Chiao family had already been abandoned by their own allies, and no other family was willing to speak up for the Chiao family. Even the vassals, the Elizabeth family, were currently avoiding the Chiao family like a plague. The victors would always shine brightly, while the losers would always be ignored. Does the Chiao family need assassins? Don't have such high expectations of me. The man on the bed sat up and said helplessly, with all of you acting like this, I am under a lot of pressure. There's still Su Hua. As long as he is not dead, no one will dare to touch the Qiu family. And the losers, the Qiu family, had fallen from being a top-notch aristocratic family in a single night, and were completely deserted. Qiu Tianqing's strength had shocked everyone, but so what? Qiu Tianqing was already dead. So what if Qiu Su Hua was a genius? His current whereabouts were unknown. After listening to the flattery, Exen satisfied his tiny vanity and started to become impatient. If you have the time, why don't you go to the twin violent girls? Hearing Exen's last sentence, Melissa rolled her eyes. This guy has nothing to do every day. He is always idling around. When has he ever been busy? The two of them greeted him respectfully at the same time, but then reacted and glared at each other. But this time the two of them did not dare to quarrel but sat upright. A powerful martial artist that could shatter space, even if the other party was a spirit general, was worthy of their respect. The waves from the battle had just started to spread. Huoli Ruo became anxious. It was not that he did not want to invite them, but he had rushed over in a hurry, and did not obtain the authorization from the higher-ups, thus he did not dare to casually speak. Temple's martial techniques and spirit techniques came from Heaven's Road's temple. Because martial techniques were lower-leveled, Temple had publicized many of them, but spirit techniques had always been a secret of Temple. But all of these martial techniques that came from Heaven's Road did not have much of an influence in the honorable martial continent. Occasionally there would be people who learned one or two martial techniques and used them to support their lives. He had always thought highly of himself and had an arrogant temper, but when he met someone who truly admired him, he would admire him from the bottom of his heart. As long as Senior Xian was able to reveal some information, Seuss believed that he would definitely be able to investigate Senior Xian's background. Seuss spoke out solemnly, I represent Temple to invite Senior Xian and Macefield Tradings to join Temple. That Senior Grey Xian? She suddenly recalled Miss Chia had a subordinate called Xian. Could it be him? No matter how strong a person was, he could only be an assassin. Qiu Ning was an exception. It was something that could not be helped because Qiu Ning walked a completely different path. Many people guessed that Senior Xian and Macefield Trading's ancestor had some sort of relationship. But other than that, no one could think of any other reason for Macefield Tradings to obtain Senior Xian's favor. Before today, this junior thought that I was already the strongest military general in the world, but after witnessing Senior's battle, I finally know what it means to be a frog in a well, to know how vast the world is, and to know that there is still a powerful martial artist like Senior. Breaking through the void, there is actually such a thing. I was truly too laughable in the past. Huoli Ruo could not help but speak up. He was filled with admiration. Huoli Ruo and Seuss immediately stopped bickering. Such spirit generals were usually extremely powerful, and a few of the most powerful martial artists would gradually recover their memories, and would start to consciously cultivate, becoming stronger day by day. In the past, the Qiu family had a good relationship with Temple, and after Qiu Su Hua became a great general, he was able to obtain some special things from Temple like martial techniques and spirit techniques. Qiu Yu heard Ning's guarantee and calmed down. He was extremely confident in Qiu Ning's strength, but was worried that Qiu Ning would not treat him seriously, since the family usually did not place any importance on Qiu Ning. Are they truly clan elders from Temple? And they are ranked in the top 5 clan elders? In the history of Temple there had been such spirit generals before. But these spirit generals were extremely difficult to subdue, and although they would not be corroded by energy, they would be corroded by time. But the two of them were arguing right in front of her, and even if she was beaten to death, Melissa would never have thought that she would receive such treatment. Although the new senior had a slight injury on his face, the two of them pretended that they did not see it. Master Tang Tian is already so powerful? Master Tang Tian is already so powerful? Melissa's impression of Master Tang Tian had become even more unfathomable. Ever since Master Tang Tian returned, Melissa felt that the situation had suddenly developed in a strange direction. Everything was extremely strange and she did not know what to do. In the eyes of the top predators in the Saint Continent, the current Qiu family was a piece of juicy meat. Without the power to protect them, the Qiu family's abundant resources and wealth attracted the greed of countless people. If it was during peaceful times, everyone would still have some misgivings, but it was a turning point, and the more power they had, the higher the chances of victory in the future. Many of them had already started to plot in the dark. When Seuss heard that, he had the intention to stab Huoli Rua to death, but he could not do so and maintained a smile on his face. "Senior, you misunderstand. It is a misunderstanding. This junior was just curious. I did not have any intention of interrogating you." Towards Senior, this junior only has respect and reverence, and does not dare to have any other thoughts. Melissa stared blankly at the strange scene in the hall, her mind at a loss. He is not tall and has an ordinary appearance, but he is very young. Clan Elder Seuss gestured. What does the Chiu family have left? He did not plan to give Seuss any face. Temple was their #1 target. They had restraining fear, but they were not afraid at all. Even the restraining fear was because they did not want to ruin the current situation. The battle at Chiu Offense Institute had caused the Macefield Trading's family's reputation to soar, and in a single night, they had risen to the ranks of the top aristocratic families in the Saint Continent, and received the most fervent pursuit. In the entire Chiu family, no one felt that the Chiu family would ever need assassins to redeem their dignity. Exin could tell that Huoli Rua's respect came from the bottom of his heart, and was secretly pleased. Huoli Rua and Seuss were also stunned by Xian's words. They were both aristocratic families, and the people they interacted with were all people of the upper class. When had they ever heard such blatant words? Compared to martial techniques, the might of spirit techniques was much stronger. After all, in Heaven's Road, it was a system that only saints could train in. But spirit techniques did not flourish in the Sacred Saint Galaxy because of that. Temple's secrecy was one of the reasons, but the main reason was that spirit techniques were too complicated. Regardless of whether it was Huoli Rua or Clan Elder Seuss, they were existences that she had to look up to in the past. The Hua family and Macefield Trading's family did not have any interactions, as the Hua family was high up in the clouds. She knew of Clan Elder Seuss. The Macefield Trading's family had spent countless efforts to befriend Clan Elder Bianchi, who was Clan Elder Seuss' best friend. Spirit techniques originated from martial techniques, and were the products of Heaven's Road martial artists who stepped into the realm of saints, and were even more advanced. The saints of Heaven's Road and the saints of Sacred Saint Galaxy, other than being able to directly mobilize energy, had too many differences. For example, spirit domain, spirit value, etc., much less spirit technique cards, which the Sacred Saint Galaxy could not comprehend. Who knew that Chiu Ning would actually walk a path, and become the strongest individual martial artist in the Chiu family? Tang Tian and Chia also did not expect Huoli Rua and Temple to actually find them, and the two of them started to discuss softly. When Exin heard the other party calling him Senior Exin, he immediately became pleased and ran to Xiaoman to show off, but was ruthlessly beaten up by her. Didn't you see that even General Huoli Rua and Temple's clan Elder Seuss both went to Snow City to pay a visit to Senior Exin? The meaning behind it was clear. Melissa subconsciously denied it. She respected Miss Chen Hui, but she did not have a good impression of Exin. He was always sloppy and did not have a proper job, and was either slacking off or bragging to Jizai, and was often beaten up by General Xiaoman. Exin was extremely crafty. Upon hearing Seuss's words, how could he not understand? He sneered. Are you trying to find out my background? Hehe, we are not familiar with each other. Why should I tell you? After thinking for a long time, Melissa could not think of a second possibility. Melissa was startled. After hearing the two's description, she was certain that it was Exin. Alright, in any case, everything that happened today is extremely strange, she consoled herself. After becoming a spirit general, the capacity of their memories would be greatly reduced because the memories would fuse with their body. With the flow of time, new memories would continuously be added to the spirit general, and upon exceeding the capacity of the memories, the spirit general's body would slowly melt, and that was the corrosion of time. Since young, he was extremely interested in martial techniques, and did not listen to the advice of his elders, and was obsessed with martial techniques. Thus, since young, he was not valued by his family, but he did not care and continued to do things his own way. Isn't that how the world works? The victor should receive such treatment, the loser will always be left with nothing. Behind him, a man who was lying on the bed said indifferently. Chiu Su Hua and him were similar in age and grew up together. After becoming a great general, Chiu Su Hua specially obtained many spirit techniques from Temple for him. These spirit techniques were kept secret by Temple, but the authority of a great general was high enough, and was completely unrestricted. Xian did not comment and turned to look at Seuss. But no matter how he racked his brains, he could not find any historical figures that matched Senior Xian's description. The sacred Saint Galaxy's energy concentration was too high, and the difficulty of producing a spirit general was extremely high. But the stronger the martial artist, the higher the possibility of producing a spirit general after death. All of these peak martial artists had experienced countless of tempering when they were alive, and had long become as tough as steel. As long as they had an obsession in their hearts, it would be so strong that even energy would not be able to corrode it. Qiu Yu peeked through the gaps in the curtains and looked at the Macefield tradings in the distance. All of the familiar faces inside caused him to be enraged, and he spoke out hatefully, "These bunch of fence-sitters. They usually come to our Qiu family to wag their tails and beg for pity, but now they are going to curry favor with Macefield tradings. They are all despicable people. Alright, they are not here for me. We have not lost yet," Qiu Yu said. "He is a spirit general," Huoli Ruo pointed out. Previously, when Clan Elder Seuss treated her so passionately, she already felt that it was strange. But now that she saw the smile on Clan Elder Seuss's face, she felt that something was wrong with her eyes. The look of him groveling made it seem as though he wanted to pounce on Xian and lick his toes. Huoli Ruo could not wait for Seuss to offend Senior Xian and immediately fanned the flames. "Hee, Senior, please calm your anger. You cannot blame Clan Elder Seuss. It can only be said that Temple style has always been like this. They are used to dictating the fate of others, and it is inevitable for them to have an interrogative tone. Clan Elder Seuss did not do it on purpose. No one would treat the Macefield Tradings family as a lowly prestigious family." You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.